It's not as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes.
And I say, insect or man, death should always be painless.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I caught him, Sheriff. Wait, who is it? Billy Loomis. Sir.
Pardon me, I'm Loomis, Dr. Sam Loomis.
I think our friend Sam Loomis didn't know that Marion was here.
Oh, Sam, I hate having to be with you in a place like this.
Just listen to me. When you go down the street to the Mackenzie's house, I want you to tell them to call the police.
Your car. Drive down to the Mackenzies.
We must be mad. Literally mad.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes. It was fun.
Well, hello, folks. This is episode 77 of Double Feature Horror Show, and it's a little bit of an odd one. Odd in the sense that we are not going to be doing a topic for tonight, as I figured the discussion of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, adapted as a TV series by Mike Flanagan, is probably meaty enough for a stream if we don't want to risk the wrath of Super Nanny. But also odd in the sense that we got some fairly major news before we went live. And it is kind of odd to be super sentimental on a stream where we make weird puerile jokes about horror movies and lots of meta humor. But the news is nevertheless quite significant, and there's a high contingent of Brits on this stream, and I think we're all feeling a little bit affected, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, hello, I'm back for this episode.
Oh, also Haryan's back. Hey, you guys.
Yes, I made time in my busy schedule, and then the Queen had to die.
We're all a bit thrown for a loop, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we are very
news, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very surprising news. You know, we had the Platinum Jubilee. It feels so soon. We'd only just seen the news that she had appointed Liz Truss as Prime Minister, and we will keep our comments on that separate. This is a horror stream or a comedy stream. What is it? What's the usual excuse that we get?
It's a comedy show.
That's it. It's a comedy show. In our case, a horror show. But it's not me physics a bit.
Yes, it's impossible not to address when the second longest reigning monarch of all time dies, and not only that, it's the monarch of our country. I mean, the flag's in the background of my profile picture forever for a reason. And now we've got King Charles III, which long live the king and all that. It's but credit where it's due. Well, obviously, loads of credit is due to Queen Elizabeth II. She did her duty, went well beyond it. I mean, literally 2 days before she died, she can't have been in that good of health, but she was still standing up with the help of Kane, saying hello to the ex-Prime Minister and now the new Prime Minister. She did her duty, went well beyond it. Hence, I've raised a few whiskey glasses to her tonight.
Indeed, I've raised a whiskey sour to her myself. To Her Majesty's memory and to reign of the new king.
Yeah, but she wouldn't want to get in the way, even in death. She just wants to do
that is
duty.
true. Yeah. I mean, you talk about doing the duty. You know, she's so busy with appointments up and down the country, constantly, multiple appointments every day. You know, even I, in my somewhat sleepy backwater of Britain, managed to meet her way back in the day.
Nice.
So,
wow.
she, I mean, hardworking doesn't really cover it, you know?
I mean, there are even pictures of the royal family coming out, especially of Prince Charles just looking distraught. And, well, losing your mother, it can't be, it can't be easy. It's not easy, full stop.
No, and you've have that news, and then it's effectively hit the ground running. You are the king now.
Yeah, he'll he'll go through the days of mourning, but after that, I reckon he'll carry on in the footsteps of not getting in the way too much, doing his duty, and keeping the country running as best as the royals can.
So I guess what I'm saying, folks, if you've toasted to Her Majesty Elizabeth II tonight, you are not alone. I think we've all done it on this stream, and we'll focus on the topic, but forgive a bunch of Her Majesty's subjects for feeling a little choked tonight, a little bit odd, and I'm sorry, Mima, if you didn't know. Yes, we just got the news about 90 minutes ago, if that.
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way: I was playing FIFA at the time, and the match is still paused.
That is extremely modern. I know.
Oh, you say it's modern? It was FIFA 05.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I had a bunch of extremely puerile jokes planned for this stream, and I think I'm just going to postpone them because I feel extremely weird doing them. We might have a slightly more serious stream than usual.
I think we'll get into talking about Hill House, and the Queen will be at the back of our minds, and we'll be able to make the jokes again. But it is, as you say, it's odd. It's especially odd if you're hearing the news from your weekly horror stream.
Yeah,
but you'll never forget this episode, Mima, will you?
Yeah, that's stuck in your head, Mima. You thought you were here to just celebrate having a couple of kitties on you, and so like, well, look, you've already got the kitties, so that's some comfort. I certainly wish I had one. Gatsby's he's walked off, but I'm sure he's going to come back in and make himself very known. Yeah. Okay, then. Okay, well, we're going to try and just press on with it. Again, forgive us if we're a bit weird. We are Brits. But Haryan, I mean, should we say a little thing about you? You've been off, and we've obviously enjoyed charting your journey.
I just have one thing to say. David Lynch, I'm coming to kill you.
What? In the movie reviews?
No, in real life. Oh my god! I was thinking of making a whole edit for it, but I didn't have time because I was at my sister's house looking after a dog. I was very tempted to make an edit of me hating David Lynch and literally killing him.
I know. I'm hoping we're going to have you back. I mean, it feels TCG is running a little bit late. He is going to join us. But yes, we are meant to do a bit of a full send-off. So maybe we'll delay it until TCG is actually back here and we can have a little chat about it. But we should also focus on Amy, who's here, rejoining us after last week. Oh, I hope we still have Amy. Hello.
Yes, hello. Lovely to be back. I really enjoyed last week.
Yeah, you were fantastic. And just before the stream started, you were dropping this big knowledge.
Deep knowledge.
Amy is the perfect person for this. I thought something was a reference to an actress. Amy's like, no, Chloe. There's a little bit more to it.
Stuff like this.
I tell you what, I'm also just seeing Stephen King taking more and more straight from Shirley Jackson as we go on.
Mm-hmm.
I swear. But then this TV series repaid the favor and took a load back from Stephen King. So there's a weird little recycling of ideas happening that we'll be able to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah. I haven't actually read any Stephen King. I'll watch that. I've seen The Shining and that one about the mist, but I'm not.
Well, the specific reference I'm thinking of here is, guys, you won't be surprised. It's The Shining, but apparently his the famous trigger word in that Red Rum is very much inspired by Red Room. Now, the Red Room isn't coming from. Oh, this is convoluted, guys. There is a red room in The Haunting of Hill House, we are going to talk about it, but it is not in the original novel, although the rooms are named after colours. Stephen King's Red Room is apparently from Jane Eyre, but Stephen King's Red Room goes on to inspire the Red Room in this. I think it's very convoluted. I'm confused. There are other references. We're going to get into it, I'm sure. And I figure one of the interesting places to start the conversation is just about what exactly the relationship between Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House bears to its source material.
From what I've heard, it's effectively just names, and the rest of it's just an original story. Effectively, am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. It's I mean, when we say it's just names, there are references and quotations. Some of them quite specific and hard to catch. Something I think you'd really only throw in if you really knew the novel. And they're absolutely all over it, you know, constantly. Nevertheless, how much of that is, how can I say, actually related to what happens in the book is very much up for debate. What would your stance on that be, Amy?
I think I was saying before the show that I think that this TV adaptation is a complete inversion of the original source material of the novel The Haunting of Hill House. I'd say that the themes that Shirley Jackson was trying to address throughout all of her more supernatural or eerie short stories and novels is the problem of human evil. The distributors made a video a few years ago saying essentially about how horror is it has to be reactionary, and I'm not going to talk about that sort of that aspect of it, but he came to the conclusion that the reason that this is the case is because horror has to deal with the human capacity for evil, and that a lot of progressive and a lot of modern horror doesn't. He uses the example of that Fish movie by Guillermo del Toro, but a lot of modern adaptations and brand new modern horror films can't grapple with that. And I think that this is an example of that in that what is that all of the characters in the series are simply well-meaning but damaged. The trauma is the heart of everything, whereas in Shirley Jackson's work and in the original Haunting of Hill House, she was coming to terms with the problem of human evil, and she did this over and over again. In 1960, the year after The Haunting of Hill House was published, she wrote an unpublished memo. This is just in her papers about what her work addresses, and she called it the demon in the mind. And in a lot of the early drafts of her novels, this is a literal demon character, which is then incorporated into the main character. So it's like a demon that follows them around, which is then gotten rid of completely and is sort of absorbed into the main character as part of their personality. And she said, that demon finds guilt where it can and uses them and runs mad with it, laughing when it triumphs. It is the demon which is fear, and we are afraid of words. We are afraid of being someone else and doing the things someone else wants us to do, and of being taken and used by someone else. Some of the other guilt-ridden conscience that lives on in our minds, something we built ourselves and never recognize. And she said as early as 1938 that what she wanted to do was to point was to point out this flaw in all of this original sin. In 1938, she in an argument with her future husband, Stanley Edgar Hyman, who was at the time a militant communist and atheist, she rejected. They were trying to push this viewpoint of the world on her, one that is sort of just come into our wider culture, and she said, "Why in the hell should I be concerned over humanity one way or the other? You know my rather passive misanthropic tendencies and how I hate this whole human race as a collection of monsters. If so, why should I want to save the bastards? Why should I worry if half of them are standing on the necks of the other half?" And then she goes on to say that she wants to she wants to point out their insignificance and destroy the things that they love. And this is something she wrote at the age of 19. And I think that even though she went, that was the words of an angry teenager, that core belief was explored over and over again. It was a thing that she dealt with throughout her life. And I think that the Haunting of Hill House just cannot grapple with that. And for that reason, it's not even a horror. It's more of a drama with supernatural elements.
Oh, there's a lot there.
That's
sorry, that was a bit rambling.
No, that gives us a lot to go off. I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say that every character in Haunting of Hill House is very, very flawed, but definitely flawed rather than evil.
Yes.
There was a very interesting strain in there about a sort of sociopathic, or maybe I'll just stick with sort of selfish need to refuse sacrifice and only serve your own needs that a lot of them had in common. But that feels a bit short of the kind of evil that maybe Shirley Jackson's talking about there.
Yeah, in the episode at the funeral, it kind of stood out when they were all just preoccupied with their own personal grievances at the funeral of their dead sister, who had just a few days earlier committed suicide, and they were all just concerned with their own issues.
Yeah. No, there is a lot in that. I mean, just before we really dive in, because I'll just say a quick note here. Spoilers, guys. We're going to spoil the heck out of Hill House. We're going absolutely relentless, spoiling every single detail, including massive revelations that are very skillfully woven throughout the show. So bear with us.
Spoiler alert, the Queen dies.
Oh no, Haryan, no, it's too soon.
I'm sorry.
Let's see. Someone said they've only seen 7. They managed to see 7 episodes of the show. Who was it? Who managed 7 episodes? Mima. Mima, you managed 7 episodes. Yeah. Okay.
Mima only watched the next 2. That's what I'll say.
Oof. Okay, Mima, we love you. We will not be offended if you duck out to avoid spoilers. Okay. I'll tell you another thing. Since Poe's written this, when you were telling me about this sort of devil in the mind character, Amy, whose name you told me was Luke Harris, yeah? That's the one she gives it.
No, that's a different thing.
Oh, okay. Apologies.
Yeah.
This idea of
the human in the mind.
Yeah, you said there's an evil character that she weaves in through multiple stories.
Oh, yeah. So the character of so Shirley Jackson was from like quite her mum passed down for, the child ballads, which are a collection of sort of rewritten traditional ballads from England, Scotland, and Ireland that were collected and rewritten by a man called Francis James Child. There's about 300 of them. And her mum passed these down to her, and she continued to play them throughout her life and pass them down. And one of them, Ballad 243, is called James Harris, or the Demon Lover.
James Harris. Yes.
Yes. And that's a song about a woman who is a wife, a humble wife to a fisherman, and she's got three I think children, or she's got a certain amount of children, and she has this very ordinary life, and she meets a man called James Harris who entices her to follow him based on promises of travel and exploration and seeing exotic lands, and she leaves her family to go and be with him. And on the ship, as they sail away, she looks at him and she realizes he's the devil, and she sacrificed everything that she had for this promise of something better that was completely false. And that is if her short story collection, The Lottery, was a lot of the characters in that are the characters of the demon lover. They're often called James or Jimmy or something along, or Mr. Harris. And they're different explorations of the demon lover. And Luke, she said that Luke in The Haunting of Hill House was intended to be the demon lover character.
There we go. I'm just wondering if other Stephen King fans are just thinking Randall Flagg, because he does the same thing. Stephen King has a character who appears, he's got mystical powers, he appears throughout multiple stories, often using a different name, but just always with the initials RF, or almost always. And I just wondered if Stephen was reading Shirley Jackson and thinking, yeah, good, I'll have that. That goes in my bag of trinkets. No offense to him, I mean, steal from the best. Why not?
Yeah. I haven't, like I said, I haven't read any Stephen King, but I don't think there's anything wrong with taking significant influences from the people that came before you, from the masters of your genre. And he wrote. I haven't read Dance Macabre. I intend to for my Shirley Jackson videos, but he speaks about he's very open in his acknowledgement of the influence she had on her.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's no shame in it whatsoever. So to give you a quick roundabout, I mean, I do hope, folks, that you have watched it. This might not make sense if you haven't watched the series, and you're. We'll just point out that the way I've thought of this is this series isn't an adaptation; it's a germination. It's like the novel was the seed from which this story has grown, because it's littered throughout. Like, there is no test. There is no scheme to work out whether hauntings are real. But there are character names all over the place. Going left to right here, we've got Theo, same name as the story. She's got the same homosexual tendencies as she does in the film. That I didn't really pick up in the book. You have Stephen, who is taking the name of the Doctor, I believe. Forgive me if I'm being daft there and I'm missing. I'm going to keep juggling. We have an Eleanor who has quite a few elements of the original Eleanor. We have a Luke who is also a bit of a substance abusing layabout and unreliable. But then we have an additional, there are 5 Crane siblings, and there are only 4 main characters to reference in the original novel. So our 5th sibling is Shirley, after obviously Shirley Jackson, but she does have the surname Harris. Now, whether that's from James Harris, as we've just been discussing, or Julie Harris, who played Eleanor in the Haunting 1963, which we discussed last week. Confusing, but there are names from the book turning up everywhere. They are in the Sanderson Clinic, named after. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just to say that the doctor in the book is called John Montague, so I'm not sure if God only knows where Stephen's name comes from. Yeah,
then where the heck is Stephen from? I am lost on that.
Maybe
I don't know where she's.
This book needs a Steve.
Well, we did have a Dr. John Montague turn up in the series in one episode, and he was actually played by, I've immediately forgotten the chap's name. but he was in the Haunting as well. That was quite a nice cameo that they gave him. It was quite cute. We've got lots of other elements as well. So we're starting with the famous quotation from the novel that opens episode 1. We have lots of little bits, like a creepy, I guess you would call it maybe an old ballad about a man who murders a family, gets brought, it's sort of sung in the novel, and then it's brought up by a ghost in the end, sort of a bit apropos of nothing. And one of my favourite bits is that they took an episode from the novel where Eleanor goes invisible, and they really made it sort of the central thing of her character. And I absolutely loved that in the novel. I thought it was probably the cleverest thing in there, because it sneaks up on you and you don't even realise it until it's happened. That she just is the house. They've ignored her. They've lost track of her. It's quite an amazing thing to read, and they did a lot with that in this.
Well, I take it, because I didn't read the novel, but I take it that's a reference that they did a lot with when it comes to the Two Storms episode, where you know, she says, "I was there the whole time. You didn't see me," and you catch her in the back of the funeral home every so often.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Not just in that episode where it's very literal, but they kind of make it Eleanor's whole character that she's ignored, that everyone overlooks her.
Yeah, I didn't because I didn't read it. I didn't realize that was a reference for that. Because it's fine referencing things, but when you reference something and then use it well like that, I do appreciate that. I have to say. Yeah,
I really liked it. It's very, usually I'd find the something being described as inspired by quite sort of, I wouldn't take that too seriously, but in this one I think inspired by very much fits. They adapted it very, very, very freely. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's a very loose adaptation, but references where they are still good. Because I'm judging this purely on how is it internally type, rather than I don't, because even with, say, The Witcher, I don't really care how it's adapted. How is it internally? It turns out it's still bad, but you know.
What, The Witcher?
Yeah, The Witcher on Netflix. Yeah.
Okay. I gather. Yeah, I know people who played the games have strong feelings about that. So.
Yeah, well, I played the game, then read the books, then watched the TV show, and I'm like, well, the TV show is the worst of all of them. But,
okay.
But with this, I mean, this makes me want to read the book, even though I know the adaptation is very loose. But
well, it's basically a completely different story. But you will not be wasting your time. I loved it. Sure. It's very short as well. It's about 240 pages.
And then it took 10 hours for them to do this. They did War and Peace in 3.
I have to say, this felt like it could have. This did feel like it could have been 8 episodes, but
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Even so, it was still.
Can I ask? Good. Is there a specific bit you felt could have been trimmed?
Earlier episodes, I think, could have been trimmed.
Yeah.
Later episodes, I think basically everything past Two Storms was fine, which was episode 6. I think the first 5 episodes maybe could have been condensed to 3.
Well, tell you what,
especially with what's the lesbian one?
I have
don't know why she's a character.
I have strong feelings about the lesbians in this. We will get on to them. It's going to be my most. Amy, you're going to have to forgive me. It's going to be my most ridiculous set of nitpicks. I literally took off a whole burger.
Wait for mine.
Of the lesbians.
Okay. Man, wait till you hear what I take off. Jeez.
All right. I mean, we should talk a little bit about the structure that's interesting, because Amy, you had feelings about this, so maybe let's talk about the structure. So there's 10 episode series. The first 5 episodes are all centered around a particular Crane sibling. We start with Stephen, then we move on to Shirley, then we cover Theo, then we cover Luke, and Nell's episode is effectively the capper and the first instance of a Mike Flanagan hallmark. He establishes, maybe not in the most perfect format, but definitely they are there, so many tropes that he uses over and over again. And this particular one I'm thinking of is the bombshell episode. He loves to do a thing where the story builds up and then absolutely implodes around one particular thing, and then suddenly the whole series pivots on the basis of this. In Bly Manor, it was episode 5. It's episode 5 in this. In Midnight Mass, it's episode 4. And there's some interesting foreshadowing about that, but we are not discussing Midnight Mass, so I won't spoil it. And you can watch for it in his upcoming stuff. He has The Fall of the House of Usher coming soon. And I think he's very fond of it. He also does the penultimate episode flashback episode that he's used since. But episode 5 is effectively a pivot point. It's something that's been built up on around as we sort of see interlocking perspectives on the events from each different Crane sibling as we go forward. And it's all effectively, for the first 5 episodes, centered around Nell. And to a lesser extent, Luke. I hope that's fair to say.
Yeah, with Steve being kind of the tertiary of that. And then
I would say that the first, like, each episode, like the first episode was Steve's episode, where we learned about like the formative events in Steve's life, and then it was Shirley's formative, like the things that lead them to where they are in life, and then it was Theo's, and then it was Luke's, and then the 5th one was Eleanor's. But then Eleanor and Luke are the 2 most important children. The plot revolves around them, at least.
Yeah, the way I'd put it is Steve and Shirley, is he the mortician?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Those 2 are the baseline. They're what the whole drama is structured on. Mm-hmm. Luke and Nell create the drama, which is where all the conflict comes in. The lesbian is whoever. Who cares?
Shirley and Steve are like the storytellers of they're like the parents when their actual parents are absent. They're the 2 oldest children. And then Shirley is obviously named after Shirley Jackson, the author of the source material. And then Steve is an author, he's a sort of, what would you describe the genre? Like a true life, a supernatural sort of real stories books, where he takes other people's supernatural experiences and writes books about them. And his breakthrough is he writes one about his family and their experiences in the house.
Yeah, he writes stories of like true hauntings. He started off trying to do his own fiction, and it wasn't successful. And so he, you get the, just for background folks, the tragedy that occurs in their house in Hill House when they're children, that we get glimpses of. It's a mystery that's built up to a tragic event that claims the life of their mother. That's quite sensationalized and mysterious. So it's effectively, his books aren't selling, and so he takes the money to write about his childhood, which causes a massive fracture. I will just pause though, as we've had TCG join us, and
Hello,
I wanted
evening.
to bring him in. How you doing,
Yes.
TCG?
Good evening. I'm really sorry I'm late. It's been a bit of a weird mood in the house today, I have to say.
Oh, did someone die?
We were saying the same. We have raised toasts, and saying it's an odd mood. It's a very odd mood for us here.
Yeah, it's just it's just weird. It's something we've been expecting, like personally for a little bit now, ever since sort of Philip passed. But yeah, I mean, now it's happened. It's just like it's sort of difficult. It's really odd. It's really odd.
It is a very momentous change. I mean, we've all grown up with her as our monarch.
Exactly, and obviously now we're going to have got King Charles III.
Nice.
And yeah, it's just a really weird. It's odd because it's like on the one hand, of course, she was a monarch for 70 years. Massive influence, and what a legacy she'll leave. And then on the other hand, it's like, okay, now there's a new beginning. It's these are exciting times. Sort of like, it's very, very conflicting. I mean, I can only sort of imagine what Charles is thinking right now.
Well, yeah, the worst thing of it is he has to go straight into duties, doesn't he?
Exactly. Precisely. Yeah.
And that's, in one way, it helps that something happens and you're like, oh, what do I do? And he definitely has, he knows what he has to do, but it's also brutal that he has to immediately get on with it.
Exactly.
So yeah, I had some quite puerile jokes lined up for this stream as usual. And I don't think this is a stream for them. But then this is also quite a somber series we're covering, so maybe it maps a bit better. Of course, this hasn't stopped chat from filling in the puerile joke department. Thank you, Miss GB, carrying on our Christian crossover.
Yeah, but what would chat be without the puerile jokes?
Exactly. You've got our back, chat. We aren't delivering on the filth. You're going to have to wait till next week for some shocking stuff. Yeah. So we're talking about the structure there and how they build everything up. You've got kind of an ongoing mystery throughout the series. What really happened on the fatal night when there were children in Hill House that cost the life of their mother, that saw their dad come back covered in blood? Weird stuff. That's quite a mystery to hang things on. And then there's a secondary sort of issue of Nell, which is really what everything builds up for. And it's like a bomb that just detonates in the 5th episode. And it's quite a powerful structure. And then you take, I think, basically 3 episodes to recover from it, don't you?
Yeah. I did like, I don't know if you guys have gone through like the earlier episodes yet, but I do like how the sort of the first half of the series is essentially used to build up the siblings, how each episode is dedicated sort of telling sort of like their story, if that makes sense.
This series does spend a lot of time structuring the baseline for the story. I think the main criticism has been it spends too much time doing that, but it really is, for what it makes and what it constructs, it's forgivable at the very least. In fact, I'd even go as far as say it's pretty good to do it, but the more memorable bits come from episode 5 and beyond. So
definitely,
which is where the drama really kicks off. So
I mean, early on, let's stick to these first 5 episodes for a bit. TCG, who would you say you sort of felt most for in these early episodes?
I would probably say Luke, the little boy with the glasses. Definitely. I mean, he seemed to be the most damaged of the lot, looking how he turned out. I just felt really sorry for him.
Yeah, he's quite mysterious early on. By the way, thank you for paying penance, bless you. You know I forgive you, but also I'm not going to turn it down. In fact, you know what? I was so shell shocked over the news. I think I've been a bit sloppy. So forgive. Maybe I was even shill shocked.
Yeah. Oh wow! Oh wow.
Folks, I hope you'll forgive me. We are on YouTube. We want the word to get out. I want more people in the stream hearing the wonderful takes we have on horror and learning how to appreciate it and not hate watch. If you didn't catch it, folks, I dropped a video today, sort of recorded yesterday, a bit on the fly. I was just a bit inspired about basically try and dodge hate watching, and I make my case for that. So if if you want a little more proper horror show in your life today, then I dropped that video so you can watch that. But I'd also implore you while you're here, do all the things to help the channel grow. That is liking, that is every time you're commenting and interacting, it's lovely. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but basically that is the stuff that the algorithm picks up on to say that this is good stuff and show it to other people, and it helps us grow. And then when we grow, we can fund more ambitious things. And also, it's nice for me to hear from you in chat as well, especially when you're dropping awful puns. There was a time a while ago, what was it? We're doing spooky Jane Austen stories, and people were coming up with some very good suggestions. I was fond of that. Oh, hey, Paleo-Angloism in the chat. Hello, former guest. Good to see you, man.
Hey, how you doing?
PA, how are you feeling after the news? We're trying to we're pushing on through, but we're a bit choked here. We're a bit shell shocked. And I saw your tweets about it, man. It's sensitively phrased. It was good to see. Sorry, I should stop Monarch posting, but anyway, oof. Right. Yeah, I'll try not to bias it. How about Amy? In the first 5 episodes, when they're setting up the Crane children, was there one of them that you felt was the strongest character?
I didn't feel. There wasn't one that stood out to me the most. The ones I liked the least were Theo and Eleanor, and the ones that I liked the most were young Luke, young Shirley, and young Steve. I felt like Theo and Eleanor were a bit hammed up, and I think that Luke was a bit hammed up too, but he was too cute. So that won me over.
I thought Nell. That's interesting. I thought Nell had the sort of strongest acting across both actors who play her.
Oh.
Interesting.
I might be on my own there. I also really like the actress for Theo, though young Theo, but I didn't like the character very much. But I'm holding back my extreme nitpicking, but I'm ready to go.
I just hate all child actors, so
I do understand that sentiment. But I mean they're children, and we need children. We can't just have like people on their knees with shoes on their knees pretending to be children.
I'd rather.
Why not? Why not?
To be fair, the child actors were fine in this. They didn't feel particularly wooden, from what I remember.
I think its own. If I was going to be really harsh, I'd say maybe the child actor for Steve was a bit overplayed things a little bit occasionally, but that's being quite harsh. Haryan, favorite Crane?
In terms of young or old or both?
Just the character as a whole, but you
As
take
a whole?
the question wherever you want to.
Okay, as a whole, it is. From top to bottom, it's probably Luke was my favourite in terms of how interesting they were. Then Steve, then Nell, then was Theo the mortician? I always forget.
Yeah, no, Shirley is the mortician.
Shirley's the mortician, and then it's Theo who's the lesbian. I mean, I said it at the start. Theo, I don't know why she was a character in this.
I think Theo was made redundant by the fact that the addition of the mum took the personality of Theo, of the sort of bohemian, happy-go-lucky, let's see how things go.
Yeah.
And that kind of made Theo unnecessary.
Because I'm even thinking to the 5th episode, whether in the funeral home. She's a background character. She's next to the ghost most of the time.
Yeah.
The only time she actually says anything, she hits her head.
That would be episode 6. Yeah, I mean, that's a special one. I want to talk about that in a bit more depth.
I really liked young Theo's 80s dancing, like her wanting to do copying the 80s dancing on TV, because obviously it would have been set back in the 80s, and that's the only sort of indication that would have been nothing else about the way they dressed or looked or the house was 80s. That was the only thing, and I really appreciated that. That was like added just something a little bit different.
I like how you noticed that, and I noticed that Steve's playing a Star Wars game on his 80s console.
There was I think it might be very early 90s. I could be wrong. I think it's just like it's either end of the 80s or start of the 90s where it's set. But I mean, I'm only saying that because I noticed the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah,
that was a weird thing to notice, but it was that. Yeah, I really enjoyed for such a serious character. I really enjoyed Theo having a proper 80s dance out. That was wonderful. And probably a thing we should talk about a bit more, as this is a horror channel. Early on, did this stuff scare you? And I'll maybe start with Amy.
The only thing that scared me was the only thing that truly scared me, and I actually had to walk out the room, was in the last, was it the last or second last episode, where Steve was speaking to his pregnant wife, and she was articulating his fears to him, and through the and comparing that to her baby as a parasite and eating her from the inside, and she's like, what if I pop like a blister? And I had to leave. That was horrible.
That was impressively nasty. I something I didn't realize.
Her acting was good.
I don't think I have a shot of her, but that was Samantha Sloyan, and Samantha Sloyan is in basically every Mike Flanagan thing, and I didn't even connect them. She is someone who has just disappeared into the roles. When she gets to Midnight Mass, she gets a proper big role. She gets loads of time. She's an absolute centerpiece, and she completely deserves it. But she is fantastic. She's just being a really reliable character actor in this, as Stephen's wife Lee. But she was actually in the project before this as the sort of I guess second female character, the friend. I can't remember, but I just hadn't connected it. There was the same woman, so she did a brilliant job in this, and I just really noticed her this time. Yeah. How about you, Haryan? Did this give you the chills early on?
I'm with Amy, where this was more of a drama series at the start. I'm trying to think back, because obviously it's a 10-hour series, and I do try and take it all in. Yeah. But when it came to scares near the start, I don't remember many. I needed to help jog my memory of any specific scares.
Well, that's okay. I'm thinking. Well, a lot of it is sort of the. Well, let's take the first episode where the dad comes to Steve in the night and is basically warning him that they have to leave.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You get a lot of tension as the doorknob is held. Is tried on the door on the room they're hiding in.
The red door.
No, they're just in his bedroom. Yeah. And then they have to run out from the house suddenly and leave, and you get the briefest glimpse of the mother looking very, very weird and frenzied. And they leg it out the house.
Yeah. No, I'm getting the vibe from that. It was less scary, more my head was going, well, what was going on? Okay. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't any scare whatsoever, but it was more of I'm more interested in what's going on here rather than oh my god, I'm fearing for these people, which changes drastically by episode 5. So
okay, well, let me try I'll try another one on you. So something a bit further in Luke's episode when he gets in the dumbwaiter.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I have a proper tism about that.
Oh, no, didn't like that.
They make a big deal about the basement being hidden, and they're like, okay, but the dumbwaiter goes there, so how hidden was it?
There was a lot about the house that was
That upset
strange.
me. But just to...
Yeah.
Luke gets trapped in there. Something horrific crawls out of the dark. There's the old flashlight failing.
Oh, yeah.
Did that give you the spoops?
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was cheap either. Yeah, no, that's the thing. It was bits, and inevitably we're going to compare this to Bly Manor. With Bly Manor, those things were set up before they actually gave you the spooks. And even if they weren't, like say with the Plague Doctor, they were explained as well. Which with this show, I think Mike Flanagan learned a lot of lessons about explaining mechanics from this show.
Yes,
which I'll get into later.
I think I'll go with that. So TCG, that sounds like that one was a winner for you in terms of the spooks.
Yeah. The was it the dumb waiter thing? That scene was hated that. I also was a bit apprehensive at first with the whole bent neck lady thing, as in nope, don't like the look of that. But it was one of those things like where you've seen it once, you get used to it again. So by the time we got to episode 5, I was beyond it by then. Although the little twist at the twist at the end as to the bent neck lady's origin was I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, emphasizing we did do the spoiler warning for this, but so we can talk about it. I don't want to spoil it for anyone because it's such a good twist.
Yeah, it is really good. Almost, I could almost see it though. That would be my only criticism. I could almost sort of predict it, but yeah, and it sort of kind of tied into the whole sort of timeline of events in this, because the show it's not chronological in the slightest, as you guys have already mentioned. It flicks between the past and the present, and it's constantly doing it all the time. So and it even sort of revisits previous scenes to which then explain later. It just for me the timeline got a bit messy, but it kind of worked towards the end. And as the season went on, a lot of things started to make sense, and I think the approach in that regard was a good idea, because there were times when I sort of messaged you guys in our Discord, and I was like, didn't like that, and then like 2 minutes later I'll be like, actually scratch that, no, I like that, because something had happened that I was actually like, okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah, I found that method very satisfying in terms of, okay, you see stuff maybe a couple of times, but it's kind of nice to not have someone just drop a load of exposition on you. But at the same time, it's you get your answer from someone else quite naturally in the way they tell their story. And I really like that. It was a way of setting up these little mysteries, and then the pieces are filled in later. And I really liked that. Yeah,
I appreciate it. When I realised that was what was going on, I started to sort of appreciate it a lot more.
And there was one in particular that I'd kind of forgotten about, is when Theo is dancing her little heart out in her dance room, having the best time. She gets interrupted by a spooky jangling of the door, and she's wondering what the heck's going on. And it's in the final episode we realize that we see that scene. We start off seeing that scene again, and then seeing that at the same time another scene is the other side of the door of Shirley and Nell trying to get in. Now this is kind of the big mystery. Oh gosh, again, we said spoilers. I'm gonna feel guilty, but oh my gosh, we have said spoilers. The mystery of the Red Room is just it's such a satisfying payoff there, that you realize at that point you've had the information to put it together. But it's probably the best example of it giving you the information you need in a really satisfying way. Oh.
It's about the best thing I can say about the Red Room, yeah.
All right, we'll probably touch on the Red Room a lot more in the finale.
Yes.
With the bent neck lady, because I want to deal with sort of this half of the series. I kind of loved the message it was giving, which was quite brutal. Basically saying that Nell was doomed from the start.
Yeah.
That's how I interpret it. Actually, sorry. Does someone want to explain the bent neck lady for anyone who doesn't care about spoilers but hasn't seen it?
Well, none of us do.
I'll happily do it I'll do it very briefly. So young Nell experiences night terrors, or specifically she sees visions of like a bent neck lady, and that's what she refers it to. And as she gets older and older and older, she sees it more. She ends up seeing a sleep technologist called Arthur, who she ends up marrying, and he helps her through the sleep terrors. And then one day when he goes to get up to do the old technique, he has a brain aneurysm and drops, all while the bent neck lady is present. And after that, she sort of spirals. She sees more. She starts to see her a bit more and more, until eventually she's like, I'm going to go back to the house. She gets convinced by another sleep psychologist that it's all in her head. She's done nothing wrong. She's stopped taking her medication pretty much, and she's like, no, I'm going to go back to the house. So she goes back to the house to essentially confront her fears, and is immediately drawn into the house. She goes up the little spiral staircase with her mum, and then her mum like puts a necklace round her. But in reality, it's a noose, and then
it's the locket she'd asked her mother for when she was a kid. All the stuff is just set up. It's so good.
And then she's sort of hanging off the edge of the staircase, like fearful for her life. And her mum comes along and is like, "Oh, it's time to wake up," and just sort of gently pushes her off the ledge. And as she goes down, as the rope sort of like tightens. Oh, it's brilliant. She goes through like different floors, like different stages of time, and then every time, each time she drops, it's like she sees herself, and she sees herself looking at the bent neck lady, and then she at first she doesn't really know what's going on. She's just sort of like silent. What the hell? Then she drops down another sort of level, and then it's her seeing her again, and then like I think the penny's starting to drop, and it's this one here that you're showing up on screen now. When she drops down again, she realizes she's looking, she's going, no, and in this scene she sees her going no, and then she drops down another level to like the first time she sees her, and then screams, and then it all essentially she was haunting herself, and it was just wow.
Yeah. I liked it initially in the reveal.
It was good.
Yeah. It was ruined at episode 10.
Oh, it was completely ruined in episode 10. Yeah, episode 10 comes along and craps over everything, but it was really good up until that. I'd like to know how people interpreted that. So, Amy, did you have an interpretation on what that all meant character-wise? What they were trying to say with that?
There's a lot of stuff in the series that I thought seemed like it should be symbolizing something, but it didn't seem to symbolize anything to me, or it seemed to just be an attempt at symbolism without actually having the ability to convey anything profound. Unfortunately, this was one of them. I wasn't quite... this wasn't, to me, the most striking thing about Eleanor's episode or Eleanor's character.
Okay, no worries.
That's just I just gonna. I mean, I didn't particularly like the series, so that does. I am coming from that perspective.
Do not worry, it's not David Lynch, so you're allowed to dislike it. It's it's fine. It is fine. The thing. So I did take something from this. I got strong reads on meaning from Luke and Nell in the way they are haunted. Not so much anyone else. But with Nell, the fact that she's basically been seeing this version of her killing herself from like the earliest is telling me basically she was kind of doomed. It's just a very simple message that basically this was a fate that was awaiting her, very much like in the original Haunting.
There's no reason why she is doomed. There's no reason. She just is, and it's like they can't quite get a grasp on why she is doomed.
Oh no! Don't you get it, Amy? You need to get it. Time's just like confetti.
We're not doing the episode 10 hate yet.
No, you're
right. We're going to hold off a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what it was saying is effective. The way I read it, and I am known for my questionable readings, but I read it as a fact that basically the seeds of her death are basically sown in childhood when she's ignored. The fact that basically everyone consistently ignores her and is too busy with her own stuff. And then there's this trauma. It was basically saying to me that these things all set her up for her death from the the start. And she was basically doomed by that. If there'd been an intervention there, she could have been all right.
It just doesn't tickle me.
No, that's all fine.
One thing did bug me though. I mean, everybody's having these experiences. Everybody, and it's not like they're not talking about them, and yet they all seem to be in some sort of collective denial about it. I mean, especially with a character like Theo, who has like the magic touch. I thought that was a bit dumb, but yeah, again, like they quite happily believed that her and her magic touch, but oh no, there was a ghost in the secret cellar, or I keep seeing a bent neck lady, or our mother/wife is having like a mental breakdown, and she's quite spiritual herself, and even the dad is having these like weird experiences, and like nobody just acknowledges it. I mean,
to defend it at this point, the theme of Hill House is denial. It's how to cope with trauma, and a big part of it is denial and denying it in different ways. So, with Stevie V writes about it, with bent neck lady, she tries to medicate herself off it. With Luke, he tries to drug himself off it.
Shirley decides that she just needs to fix it.
Yeah,
that's her whole thing. Is I can
death.
Fix it, and she needs like strong control over it the whole time.
Yeah,
she has to control everything.
Theo just sleeps with other women or something. Who cares? She's not a character.
No. She has the magic touch.
Oh, it's such a shame.
That's what Trish thought.
Trish. Oh, Trish.
All right.
The thing that got me most about this episode, which I think was most relevant to this episode, to Eleanor, and to why the TV show didn't hit right with me, but also led up to, I think, the most interesting thing about the TV show, which was the mum, was that when Eleanor finds in an old toy box a tea set, and that has the cup full of stars in, and she takes it to Mrs. Dudley and she says, can I keep it? And Mrs. Dudley says to her the line, keep your cup full of stars. If you let them take it, they'll make you just like everyone else and you won't be special anymore. And in the book, Eleanor says that to herself during the formation of her own delusions. Whereas in this, it was Mrs. Dudley saying it to her to comfort her. And I think that that's when I was saying how this is like just about people's traumas. It's a drama about people's traumas with some supernatural elements. It's not a horror. That's why, is because it has that very modern sort of it didn't hit right for me, as I've previously explained. And then also I think that episode really it was important for it setting up the issues with the mum that come into it in the 9th episode, when she says, when she gets angry and she says, I have a steel poker in my head, meaning she's got a migraine, and my daughters are trashing my, and she's going to say, my daughters are trashing my house. And then the mum gets really angry about the name on the, she thinks that Eleanor's written her name on the wall, and the mum gets really angry about it, though she cares more about the house than she does her daughter. I think that the episode is more interesting for setting up that than I think for setting up Eleanor. This idea that she's
there is a bit of an odd tension in it over whether the house is Eleanor's or whether it's the mother's.
Well, the
mum
house
clearly sees the house as her,
Yeah.
the mum clearly sees the house as her own.
I think it's worth bearing in mind that the house is itself is just puppeteering the dead spirits for its own ends.
Yeah. Just to take a brief moment on it, though, with the cup of stars, I did think so. That is a reference to the novel, but as you've kind of pointed out, Amy, it's not an easy fix. It's like someone has said the line, but it doesn't really match the context. And,
Can I read a section from the novel which
please
highlights
do.
the difference between Eleanor in the novel and then Eleanor as the character in this is in the novel. There's this section where they're all sitting in the drawing room, and you get Eleanor's thoughts about the other people, and so this is Luke speaking at first. It was the custom rigidly adhered to, Luke said, turning the brandy glass in his hand, for the public executioner before a quartering to outline his knife strokes on the chalk upon the belly of his victim, for fear of a slip, you understand. Then this is Eleanor's thoughts. I would like to hit her with a stick, Eleanor thought, looking down at Theodora's head beside her chair. I would like to batter her with rocks. An exquisite refinement, exquisite because, of course, the chalk strokes would have been almost unbearable, excruciating if the victim were ticklish. I hate her, Eleanor thought. She sickens me. She's all washed and clean and wearing my red sweater. When the death was by hanging in chairs, however, the executioner... and then she goes on to have similar thoughts about Luke as well, about this urge to harm them and to kill them and to destroy them. And the sort of specialness of Eleanor turns from something that is a deep flaw within her personality, to need to be always need to be the center of attention, to need to consume others, to becoming like a sort of almost like a good quality about her, that I mean she is ignored, but it just seems very therapeutic in a way that I think doesn't quite fit with the genre.
Well, there is an interesting irony that it's the psychiatrist who she's seeing who says, you probably need to readdress your trauma by going back to the house. I thought that was psychiatry BTFO'd, TomCruise.jpg. But it is. It's kind of, as you've I think correctly said. There's a reluctance to have people as evil, and you notice even we kind of get a de facto big villain character in Poppy Hill, and all we get from her is, oh, she's crazy, she's insane, which is like, I that stood out to me as a bit unsatisfying this time. I hadn't really thought about it. I didn't like it massively the first time through. I felt, well, that's possibly dragging us into discussion of the finale, so I'll maybe put a pin in it. But this is very much not the Nell of the novel, and it's not the worldview of the novel. And it is, I think it is filtered through very current lenses. So, yes, a therapeutic outlook. Even though Stephen kind of makes his... it's weird because Stephen leans on saying it's mental illness, everyone is just mentally ill, as kind of a crutch to deny what's going on. That also is a bit the message of the series.
Yeah, so it's like the series it seems like this weird. I think towards the end, in the last few episodes, especially the conversation between Mrs. Dudley and the mum, really brings out some extremely interesting points. And the conversation between Mrs. Dudley and the dad in the towards the very end of the last episode, I think that brings out some interesting things. But it is always in tension with this therapeutic sort of everyone's just damaged and dragging around their baggage, but fundamentally well-meaning. It's always in tension with that, and I think that's what led to what made those initial episodes not great.
Not to plug my own videos, but I have in my videos on how to miss propaganda. I did make a point about how everything is filtered through the current worldview. So previously, your evil people would just be evil, and before that they might have been heretics, but then they were just evil and immoral, and now they tend to be damaged or it's all socioeconomics. But whatever it is, you filter it through the current lens, and I do think we're very aware of the current lens when we watch this, or I was.
The current lens was addressed in The Haunting. Mr. I can't remember his name in the Haunting, Dr. Montague, the doctor. He like consistently addresses this theme, which is only really dealt with effectively in the last couple, like 2 episodes of this TV show.
Yeah. Can I bitch about lesbians?
No, that's bad.
Oh
no, it's only bad when non-lesbians are bitching about lesbians. Horrorshow, you have all.
All right. So I want it. Oh, thank you, wifey. Something has just arrived. Okay, I'm gonna get my.
It was a door creak.
I'm gonna get increasingly incoherent from this point onwards. So let's go. This was okay. I love the show. I'm gonna rate it incredibly highly. And when I like a show this much, my nitpicks get incredibly specific. Haryan, you've had your problems with Theo, and I'll be interested to hear what they are. For me, I really don't think this show gets gay people at all. And this was something Waifu and I were really just like going on about and really distracted by. So for a start, this is Trish's main storyline. Sorry, Theo's main storyline. After she has what I think was quite an effective episode where she uses her powers to help kids and unravel a very disturbing mystery that I thought was actually really good. I loved that episode. But I think the show has got a very twisted view on her relationship. Fair's gay reading time. Woo!
It's your lesbian critical theory analysis of the show.
It is. I'm going to get my copy of Men, Women and Chainsaws, my feminist horror text, and I am going to assign people one of the essays from that as homework one week. There's the drink is a 15-year-old. It's not Glenn Farkas, I think. I had to think of that one. It's Glenn Farkas. I could be wrong. So basically, number one, why the heck is Theo meeting Trish in a straight bar? That drove me mad. Yeah, no. She's not going to hook up in a straight bar. She would go to the. No, this is important. This is my initial query. If she's looking to pull, why would she go to a straight bar? That's the number one. Second, the show is like consistently Trish just gets treated like crap and then comes back over and over again, and it's meant to be adorable. And I'm like, no, this is awful. Have some self-respect. Theo's just really awful to you. And the next time they meet up, Trish is giving her the eye again, and then gets snubbed again. And then she gets booty called, and it's great. And then she comes back for the funeral, of a woman who's just I'm trying to think of my family-friendly humped and dumped, basically. You know, she's been given the fist and told to enlist. It's not respectful. And then she turns up at the funeral saying like, "Oh, I felt you should get support," but Theo has just treated her like trash consistently, and Trish just comes back to sort of eat it up again. And I thought it hadn't really earned the relationship of Trish and Theo as a sweet thing when Theo has consistently treated Trish awfully. And those are some of my feelings on the matter. I mean, am I off?
Well, the show didn't make me hate gay people, but it made me not think of them any better.
You already hated gay people.
Exactly. It didn't paint a positive picture for them. It made them seem not people. Well, I mean, especially compared to the relationship in Blind Manor. Like Blind Manor was a very deep and meaningful relationship between I can't remember their names, the au pair and the gardener. I feel
Danny
bad
and
I don't
Jamie,
remember their name.
I believe.
Yes, Danny and Jamie, yes. This one felt like this one literally felt like Netflix said you need a gay relationship in there, and they wrote 2 extra episodes because it went on too long for 8 episodes.
I mean, if you want to have a Netflix casting theory, you might just look at literally every partner of every character except Stephen. But I don't know. I don't have pattern recognition.
No wonder Stephen was my
favourite. Were both.
Well, if they weren't, you'd have the kids very Netflix.
Well, yeah, the Dudleys were straight white. The Crane straight white, and then Steve. Yeah, every main character straight white. Therefore, everyone should have straight white relationships. That's what this show is saying. Prove me wrong.
Oof. I am fine. You know, like you know, I don't give a hoosh about it, but I felt like if it were a straight relationship, everyone would say it's horrible and abusive, but Theo absolutely gets off the hook, and I don't see that she ever sort of pays a price for how she acts. And it made it made Trish a very weak character for me when I felt she could have been really interesting as someone actually challenging Theo. Like if she'd turned up for the booty call and just kind of said no, because you know she's like, I'm not going to be used, and then Theo shows a bit of vulnerability, and it's from that conversation that Trish decides, okay, look, I'm going to turn up at the funeral, even though she's going to be all tsundere about it. Sorry, Mr. GB. And be like, I don't want you here, but I kind of do. But I don't, but I kind of do. You know, if Trish has the emotional intelligence to do that and they have a conversation backing that, that's cool. But instead, Mike Flanagan filmed his wife in a hot lesbian scene multiple times instead of having good conversations.
Which one was his wife? Was it Theo?
Oh, Theo, yeah. Kate Siegel is his wife.
That explains a lot.
Oh, Mima, I'm feeling very attacked here. I'm personally attacked. Look, this is basically just a complaint about a bad couple. I feel the fact that it was a gay relationship meant that people didn't really cast a more critical eye on it.
Well,
it wasn't really a relationship. It was the beginning of a relationship. Yeah. It was the breaking down barriers, which some relationships have to begin with, especially serious ones. And you know, she's never been in a relationship. Seemingly, she's never been in a relationship her whole life. And I guess when they all have to sort of figure out their traumas, that's her figuring out her trauma and letting her barrier down. Her biggest fear is the fear of being normal, and but by having this relationship, it allows her to be normal, to have a normal relationship with someone who wasn't from the house.
Yeah, I just would have liked it without her treating Trish awfully and not being challenged on it. Waifu, in fairness, they did make them wear dungarees in the end episode, so they got the accuracy in the end.
Do you feel more sit making your streams in dungarees?
I think I've been in dungarees in videos. And I've maybe made far too many Tegan and Sarah jokes, but never mind. Obviously, disavow. That was my little nitpick about Theo and her whole thing. When we're talking about this being a bit too long, I sort of felt episodes 7 and 8 could really have been one episode.
7 and 8.
So that's you have the amazing episode 6 about the funeral.
Yeah.
But the
it felt like half this season took place in a funeral home.
Oh, it totally did.
when a quarter of it could have.
Look, they built massive sets. You know, they wanted to use those sets. Very much Joss Whedon production style. You put all your money into an absolutely massive set, and then you basically never leave it.
Episode 6 and episode 7 were really the watershed episodes when it came to a certain 4-letter word beginning with F, and it felt like half of the it sort of started in episode 6, and then episode 7 really, took it quite far, which half of the words said with that word, and it kind of gave up on any sort of pretense at having any sort of sophisticated emotional dialogue. I'm glad they reined it in after that.
I am incredibly with you on this. Again, I might get laughed at, but it's so overused, and I did notice it a lot in this. I mean, I'm old. I remember when you couldn't really drop that word very often, and 4 weddings and a funeral was utterly shocking for opening with a scene that was just endlessly dropping F-bombs. But they do it too much now. It's too freely. To take a really odd reference here, are any of you familiar with Bertolucci and The Last Emperor?
No.
Okay. Well, the short of it, and it's really good, by the way, folks. I'd highly recommend it. It's set, set in the days of the last emperor of China. And the communist revolution is basically just kicked off at the end. And Peter Cushing's character, I do hope it's Peter Cushing. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I haven't seen it in a very few years. He comes out of the palace and sees a student Red Guard marching. And he says, "What's going on here?" And they say, "We're following the glorious communist leader. Join us, comrade, or F off." And it's like the only F-bomb dropped all film, when it's otherwise been really quite mild. And it's absolutely shocking. And you just, whereas it feels a bit grimy to have people just drop it so often. I had this with Scream as well, the 2022 version. Just, you're dropping the F-bombs too much, guys. It's a bit weird.
I mean, it's just to replace other things that they can't say because they don't have enough understanding of what they're trying to do in writing a script. I don't mean that it was just these 2 episodes, but it really felt like they which episodes was it? It was 6 and 7 were the swearing episodes, but it was 7 and 8 you said you didn't think you could be made into one episode.
Yeah, so that just spends a long time on the actual funeral and the obituary. So 6 is an absolutely standout episode that's composed of basically 4 long takes. 7 is the the funeral and the aftermath of the funeral, with ultimately Luke deciding that he's going to take the car and the credit card from Shirley and Theo and then go and burn Hill House down. And I just thought that was taking too long. It had slowed the action a bit too much, and I think everything in it could have been crammed in. And ultimately, it also didn't help that I felt episode 8 had some really weak writing in it. I'm thinking of there's a conflict Shirley and Theo have, and there's an attempt at comedy with Shirley and Theo fighting over the suspicion that Theo has been having an affair with Shirley's husband. And it ends on this kind of weird joke of, did you just punch me in the boob?
Yeah.
And I hated that with a boiling passion. I just thought, this is shot really lazily. It's shot reverse shot, and then you've tried to make it funny, and you're just throwing F-bombs out wildly. I wasn't a fan, and it really took me out, you know?
Episode 7 really brought together the idea that the house is decaying, and that family and house are connected, and that the house and that the house is decaying and the family at the same time is decaying. And obviously there's ability to articulate themselves to each other. It's also obviously decaying. And then episode 8 was like the reconciliation between Stephen and the dad and Theo and Shirley. And I kind of thought that I don't know if you noticed that the rats in the walls, that was so interesting, because that was obviously well, that's also there's obviously the Lovecraft story, which is also about the sort of degeneration of a family over time. And then that is also in itself a reference to, or thought to be a reference to, the fall of the House of Usher, in which the main character, he's supposed to have such sensitive hearing he can hear the rats in the walls, and that's also about like the decay of a dynasty. So I do kind of I understand, but they wanted to fit in plot, but I understand like why the themes of the because the house, that's when they find out the house has really bad rot, and also rats, and then the sort of the house is the symbol of decay and of the family dysfunction, and then after that the reconciliation between two main pairs of antagonists.
Yeah, so you think it might be, it's almost like there's a nadir in one sense in episode 7 before you start restoring in episode 8, and it might be a bit awkward to put them together. I can kind of see that. I just, how can I say, my problem was in the present day elements, that I just felt it slowed the pace down a bit too much, and that's where I was sort of desperate for things to move on a bit. I can see the argument. Just as we've kind of gone over it, but I'd just like to spend a little bit of time on episode 6 and just get thoughts on that, if that's cool. Particularly TCG, I'd love to hear what you thought of that episode.
For episode 6, yeah, this was definitely my favourite one of the season.
Good lad.
Yeah, getting all the family back together. I really, really enjoyed sort of like some of the dynamics, the long shots as well. I really, really liked just how they played out the scenes, and also sort of going back to what you were saying about Nell kind of just being ignored throughout. That kind of really sort of becomes like a bit of a focal point of this episode towards the end, because they sort of got trans into like a past scene where everybody's searching for Nell. They can't find her. And like they're searching all over the house, while at the same time Olivia's having like this mental moment, and she's sort of like kneeling in the middle of a hallway somewhere. And then, sort of a bit later on, you find out that actually she was there the whole time. She was screaming and nobody could hear her, And then I think it pans to this bit a bit later or soon after. And when they all leave, when they all leave her body, she's standing there by the coffin, and I mean it's obvious that because obviously some like weird stuff's going on. I'm trying to think what happens. Oh my god, what's his name? The dad.
The dad is sort of talking. So Hugh is sort of talking
Hugh, that's
to
it.
someone only he can see, and I think you get the idea straight away that he's obviously talking to someone else.
Yeah, but we find out that's more of a coping mechanism rather than anything supernatural, and that's confirmed in episode 10, I believe. But like when the coffin falls over by itself, there's obviously like Nell trying to stop the guy arguing because they're arguing at one point. Yeah, I just really like the dynamic. Sort of like I was intrigued to see how they'd all react to each other being back together after so long. I wanted to learn a little bit more about Hugh and sort of what he was thinking, and you know whether there would be any sort of reveal as to what had happened in the house, and like whether he would talk more to the kids. But it was more of a shell, wasn't he?
Yeah, Hugh had me crying.
Yeah, I really felt for him. I didn't cry, but I really felt for him.
It's just that thing of like he's such a dad. He's a proper dad. He's just, they don't appreciate the amount of crap that he just takes on and the burden that he takes on his shoulders.
There's a point where Stephen says to him, "You're the ghost, you are dad, you're the spectral presence, I can see right through you." But obviously he can't.
No.
Yeah, he just doesn't. It makes it very satisfying when Hugh actually sort of puts him in his place. But otherwise I just see this very quiet strength in Hugh that absolutely broke my heart, that he's just dedicated and no one appreciates it. And I know, very masculine, basically.
He protects his sons right till the end when when they go into the house and all of the spirits are walking. One of them looks in Stephen's face. He directs him to look at his face instead. And it's the same as that first opening scene, and then that's explored later on in the end, where it kind of reveals what's happening when he's like, "Close your eyes, don't look," and he's always just protected. The reason Stephen's angry with him is because his dad's protected him from the truth, because really he knows Stephen would struggle to deal with it.
Oh, definitely. And it's that awful irony, like he does hide that from Stephen, and then Stephen just doubts and hates him all because of that. And it's sort of, you don't want the truth, you know.
Well, that's it. He tried. Not only was he protecting his children, but he was also protecting the memory of Olivia in their minds. He was protecting their memory of their mother, because obviously, if they knew what she had done, then they would have never grown up. Still harboring as much love and respect for her as they did. If he just turned around and said, "I'm sure we're going to get to episode 10 in a bit," but if they said that, if he was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, kids, this is what happened when I went back to the house, like on the first night," they wouldn't take well to that.
It could have completely destroyed their sense of if your own mother wants to kill you, like that could have completely disrailed. Like that's something that can completely disrail. If your own mother doesn't want you, then no one will.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how ill the mother was, a child is still going to interpret it in that way.
Oh, of course. It's why you see in like real life, you get some right down and down horrible parents, and yet the children, who, despite the fact that they can see all the faults in these parents who, for want of a better term, have done a bad job raising them, there's still that element of there's still that desire to be accepted, to be loved, to be wanted by that who just doesn't want anything to do with you, or just doesn't really care about you. It's what every child wants, isn't it? A loving mother and father. And if they knew that the mother actually was trying to kill they're trying to kill them, that would be devastating. And it's just another layer to Hugh's character, that he's protecting the children from that, and in turn it's turning them against him, but he's prepared to take the hit if it protects their memory of Olivia. He would rather have them hate him and love their mother than the other way around, and I think that's quite admirable.
Yeah,
the idea of the protection of children. The idea of like the protection of children from the world is like, I think, is some of the more like it's highlighted a lot in the last 2 episodes, but I think it's some of the most interesting material in the TV series, especially to do with the mum and the dad. Sort of is, it's ambiguous. Like, he does this thing, and he protects his children, and he protects their understanding of their mother, and that's honorable. But at the same time, it does cause further issues. It is about where that balance should be. How should we look after our children? If you look after them too much, they could end up like the Dudley's child. They might not even make it to be the age they are to have these dysfunctions that they do.
From my perspective, Hugh is the worst character in this show. By far.
Okay.
All
right. Okay, go for it. Go for it, Haryan.
Well, in a sentence, Hugh is not only a cook, he ruins his kids' lives. That's all I have to say. Well, I'm not going to get into the episode 10 stuff, but he ruins his kids' lives. Except he's trying to protect the idea and the identity of his wife before she went mad. Which I can understand, but he's doing it at the expense of all of his kids' mental health. And all of them are suffering for it, apart from Steve, who happens to make money off it, which he can't guarantee anyway. He's risked all of his kids' futures for the good of what he thinks his wife would have wanted, and he only gets that confirmed at the end.
He could have. Imagine if he'd done he couldn't. Nothing he would have done would have ended up like Proper Horror and said earlier that this idea of Eleanor, she was doomed from the start. There is no option. There was no way out of that situation. If he'd let them know what had happened, they were children, they wouldn't have understood, and it could have been even worse. He picked the potentially the worst, the least damaging of two.
He gets 2 of his kids killed because of his decisions.
Well, again, hang on. No.
I'm thinking of how it should have ended.
No, I mean, no, because for me, the second they set foot in the home, that was when Luke and Nell's fates were sealed. That was my take. I don't think there's anything that they could have done, because again, this kind of talks, with how Nell ends up, dying, and in the revelations that happen. It almost alludes to the fact that there's no sort of like self-determination. You're on the roller coaster. You're in it for the ride. Nothing. I don't think, if that's true, then nothing that Hugh would have done would have changed the outcome.
So
and I'm
finish.
No, and I'm with Amy that. I mean, in terms of the worst decisions, I don't know. I mean, I think Hugh probably did make the least desirable, but least harmful decision. There was going to be an impact, but I mean, but then again, you don't know, because you don't see the other side. Imagine. Okay, Haryan, your mum wants to kill you. Find out your mum wants to kill you, and you wouldn't. I was going to say, you find out your mum wants to kill you, or your mum.
I would like to know that. Yes,
to murder you all. Maybe you would, but as a young child, that would still be confusing, and you'd probably grow up with some issues as well.
It wouldn't just be confusing. It's fundamentally against the nature of the way the world is supposed to be. That your mum doesn't want a mother doesn't want its own child. There's no way a child can process that information.
Just check out my
that is a child. That is the worst thing. That is the worst thing that you can believe, is that your own mother doesn't want you.
Dads abandon their kids all the time.
the whole point of this drama is that all of them are trying to cope with what happened. And the reason they're all trying to cope is because they don't actually know the truth. They're all trying to deal with the lies.
I would love to pitch in here and maybe find a cucked middle position. The whole thing of like the trauma, the whole trauma, right, is like their lives are messed up because they had this traumatic experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's more traumatic if you say, well, since you asked, your mum, unalived a tiny kid and then tried to unalive a whole bunch of you. You know,
and he knows why. He knows why as well. That's what
I can see the argument that there's a point at which he should have told them, and like he could have sat them down when they're all 18 and said, "Look, at this point, you deserve to know." But that if they're doomed because of their early trauma, increasing the trauma, I think would have only made it worse. So
I'm not saying as he was on the car driving away from the place, tell them all that his mum was a maniac. I'm not saying that, but they're in their 30s. Some of them in their 40s.
I mean, I can certainly, yeah. There's an argument to be made that maybe he should have opened up a bit later on when they were a bit.
He didn't do that. He told them a lie and then cut them out his life. He's a terrible dad. Awful. Word,
I don't disagree that he's made mistakes.
It goes beyond that.
They're real. Andrea here. It reminds me of Andrea Yates. That this sort of thing between the children and the mum. Did anyone else get that impression? Because she brought them to this house because it's their jobs, right? They buy up old houses, they make them livable again, and they sell them on. And she just sees this as this sort of dream job that she can express her creativity through, and she has this thing where the house loves them back. And I think you see her prioritizing the house over her children, especially in that Eleanor episode. And then she has when she starts to unravel mentally, she has that conversation with Mrs. Dudley, where she's feeling like she's quite like a sort of, she likes to think of herself as quite free, as a free-thinking woman. When Mrs. Dudley initially introduces Christianity to Stephen, she quotes Horace about how the world and the heavens are too broad for your philosophy.
Yeah, she drops there are more things in heaven and earth that are dreamt of in your philosophy, Horatio.
Yeah.
It's
my child is the Quran, the Torah.
I cringed so hard in that scene.
I know. I was like, your kid does not read the Quran, the Torah, the Bible. No, your kid probably doesn't even read.
I have a Talmud. No 12-year-old reads a Talmud. Get wrecked. Not a chance. Mom, can I have PS2 tonight? Can I play Tekken? No, honey. You've got to read the Tao Te Ching and then the Torah. Get wrecked. It's not happening.
No.
Sorry. I got very upset by that scene. It was like 2005 ultimate smug atheism. And it drove me mad.
Yeah, she comes to this realization that she's prioritized herself and these romantic ideas about the house at the expense of her children, and that she's put them in danger. And she's put them in danger. I think it comes to light because she gets worried about Luke and Eleanor dying and being damaged, and she gets it really comes to light in episode 9 when she's having a conversation with Mrs. Dudley, where she's saying, I'm just terrified of the thought of my little children outside of these walls. And Mrs. Dudley says, if you have these instincts, don't ignore them. Don't let other people who didn't bear your children dictate to you how you feel about that. And you get this realization that she's having this realization that in having no actual philosophy, because there's no philosophy that's broad enough to deal with the complexities of the world, she's only seen the world as like a sort of vessel of possibilities for her, and she's completely disarmed herself from the evil in the world. And she looks down at Mrs. Dudley and feels like more urbane than her, but Mrs. Dudley has protected her family and she has not. And not only has she not protected her own children, she puts Mrs. Dudley's children, well, she kills Mrs. Dudley's child. And I think that, and she comes to think that she's essentially damaged her children irreparably, that they're never going to be able to cope with this hideous world outside of the house, that she then wants to kill them to spare them from that, to save them. And it kind of reminded me of, Andrea Yates, the woman who killed her own children because she was delusional and thought that they would never be saved.
You see, if you said Susan Smith, then I'd be on the same page. Check that video out, by the way.
I will.
Yeah.
What a
yeah,
shill.
no, she yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was like quite interesting in that. I thought that was that's the bit that in the final episodes, I think, but it was the seeds were from earlier on. I think was the most interesting aspect of it. And I think that the dad, I don't want to bring up arguments, but I think that the dad did in that situation did the best he could.
Yeah, I think so. It's certainly, there's an argument he should have told them at some point, but it sounds like things really broke down long before that. But I don't think he could have controlled that. But to avoid going right down the rabbit hole about that, I think it's probably time, folks. Should we talk about episode 10?
Before we talk about episode 10, I think people will get the wrong impression of me. This show was great. This show was one of the best TV series I've seen in my life. Up until episode 10. It was amazing. Everything to do with Luke, amazing. Everything to do with Steve, amazing. Everything to do with I get them confused. I really hope it's Shirley, the mortician.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great. Theo shouldn't have been a character. As far as I'm concerned, everything else of this show, great. All ruined by episode 10, by the way. It is the Game of Thrones of this series.
I love that. I agree with you on that. I mean, you go from the highs of episode 4 and Luke's situation with meth head Zendaya, and that. By the way, you guys saw that too, right?
No, I didn't.
What specific? What are you on about? Here,
a meth head that looks like Zendaya.
Yeah, that's her name, right? The one from Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Joey, the girl he fancies?
Yeah. She looks like
her.
Joey, but sorry, she looks like Zendaya, but on meth.
But she's white.
Ooh.
They're different races. That's just a fact. They're not. That's like
deeply subversive. Deeply subversive.
There is nothing controversial, even for normies, about saying that people of two different races don't look the same.
but Joey,
calm down.
Joey's not white though, right?
Yes, she is.
Yeah, no.
At most, she could be like
someone early
Italian
like
or
her
Hispanic.
right now.
It's
going down a very dark rabbit hole here, but
and we all know what Zendaya looks like as a meth head because of that TV show she did, Euphoria.
I didn't watch that. That
Breaking Bad.
That looked very, very unwholesome.
We're talking about episode 10. Talk about episode 10. I like talking about episode 10. It ruined everything.
Oh, wait. No, one final thing. Okay, actually, I want to end on positives. So we're going to save the big hidden Easter eggs.
Unlike the show.
They all had HIV.
Okay, go on. Episode 10. Could I have someone give a... This is why I get you on. Obviously, disavow, Amy. Disavow. Oh, you scoundrel.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean that in a... I didn't mean that in any way.
You know what you meant.
That's like
Struggle session. Begin.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No. I am looking up. I'm literally early lifing her right now. But could I have someone, just for ease, effectively, we've had the build-up to Nell's suicide, where she's convinced by the house to kill herself. In episode 5, and I'm going to take a little bit of time and you'll see why, she's presented a perfect vision where everyone tells her exactly what she wants to hear. And I want you to hang on those words, folks.
Can you say that again?
Well, everyone in the house tells her exactly what, the ghostly figures in the house of people she loves tells her exactly what she wants to hear. And then she is convinced to off herself. And then we have the aftermath from that, in which everyone comes together, they have their big clashes and big dramas. And then Luke ends up deciding he needs to go and burn Hill House down.
Mm-hmm.
And so we then have a flashback episode. This is a Mike Flanagan staple now, and I kind of love it. I think it's fantastic. And then the finale is Luke arriving at the house, at Hill House, ready to burn it down. So could I have the pint of Guinness challenge description of what happens in the finale, and we will dissect it after, but let's just go over the plot points.
So episode 10. Luke doesn't manage to burn down the house because it's protecting himself with some magic BS. That's going to be a common theme in episode 10. He then
it was just moldy. I thought it was just there was so much damp it wouldn't burn.
No, it is literally just magic that stops it.
Okay.
He is then in the Red Room. The rest of the family then try and make it. Obviously, the two sisters, Theo and Shirley, are on their way. They get scared on the way in episode 9, which is another BS horror thing. But they make it as well, and they're knocked out in the Red Room because that's the stomach of the house. And then finally, the dad, Hugh, and Steve manage to make it. And they're going through the house. It's like, oh, this is so scary. What happened? Oh, well, your mum wasn't actually that bad. She only tried to kill 3 of your siblings and a random girl, but that was okay. They then make it to the Red Room, which the dad, Hugh, says, oh, it opens when it wants to. The house got a mind of its own, which, again, okay. Why didn't it have a mind before, though? I don't know. So the 4 kids are stuck in the room. They're knocked out because something we've not mentioned, there's a ghost called Poppy from the 1920s. I don't know what to say about her, apart from she's a deus ex machina for the house. And she knocks everyone out when the story needs it. So 4 people are knocked out. One's high on heroin because he got a needle of heroin from, I literally don't know where. And one by one...
Poison.
From Zendaya.
This is what makes it even dumber. It was rat poison.
It was rat poison. He was convinced to inject it. It gets worse because of that.
But then
it would have been better if it was heroin.
With Zendaya in the hotel room where she gives him, was that like a fantasy? Was that like after, where they went back to when she ran off that time?
Oh, what, the hotel room, when they go back to the hotel
room?
Yeah,
and she said, look, I've got this.
Oh no, they're in the Red Room at that point. Because the reality was that she just took the money and ran, and then that's when he got a kick in from those.
So that was like a
muggers
fantasy.
So this, yeah,
everyone was given hallucinations, and sort of on the way to tricking them into, in his case, into injecting rat poison into himself. Yes.
Well,
but the thing is, he didn't even trick himself, because he was like, "Nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it." And she's like, "Ha, you've already done it." And he looks down. He's like, "Oh no, the needle's in my arm."
Every detail makes me hate so 10 more.
And then he nearly kills himself. But basically, all the kids are in the Red Room because the house wants it, and they all kind of have a finale to their own arc. So, for example, with Steve, he's like, I want to write my own story. And then his wife says in his dream, oh, nothing really exists until you write it, do you? And it's a very obvious way of saying this is your arc and this is how it ends. Like, you can face reality, which is fine, by the way. It's a good end to the arc. But that essentially happens with each of them. They're all slowly woken up by Nell, who then tries to explain the time paradox thing in a terrible way. And I wish they just didn't even address it.
It was pretty clear what they were trying to do with the time thing. They didn't need someone to stand up and announce it to the world like that.
I'd rather have people headcanon it. It's just like I'd rather they say it's a self-fulfilling prophecy rather than time isn't dominoes, time's just confetti, which doesn't even make sense.
There's a thing I want to. Sorry, carry on, Haryan. We'll just get the plot details first, and then we'll tear into it.
So that's like the first 40 minutes of it, and as I say, they're pretty good summations of or endpoints to their arcs, which is fine. And obviously, Luke comes back to life because Mike Flanagan decided this has to be a happy ending for some reason.
Can we just mention? Hang on. I have to stop you there because you initially went with the heroin, and obviously it's rat poison. Bear in mind. He'd injected rat poison into his bloodstream, and he was successfully revived thanks to chest compressions and CPR.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense with a poison.
Drives me mad.
That causes internal organ damage.
It's one of these things that drives me mad. Folks, you've heard me talk about it before, so forgive me. But there's kind of like cinematic shorthand you get used to. Like in a fight, when someone starts being choked, you know they're going to win. Real life, if you're worried about losing a fight, get them choking you. You know you're going to win the fight immediately. But it's just cinematic shorthand that to buy someone time to get a weapon or something. And it bugs me because you know what they're going to do. They spend so much time on CPR. It's like, they're going to win. They're going to come back. And Luke really shouldn't.
Yeah, Luke should be dead, but he's not. And that's not the worst part of episode 10.
Nope.
Hugh's outside. He gets attacked by the black mold, which is the first thing. There's a lot of first time we see things in episode 10. Such as people can randomly be knocked out in the Red Room, which is the stomach. So why the ghost couldn't just knock them out and move them to the Red Room, I don't know why. But drama. So while he's there, So essentially while that's happening, eventually he wakes up and he starts talking to the ghost of the dead wife, who's saying, well, I was trying to protect them. I was trying to, quote unquote, as she says, wake them up, because in the real world they can be damaged. In the afterlife, they can't be. Nothing can hurt them. So she goes like that for ages, but then Hugh makes a point of, well, they can't be damaged, but also nothing good can happen to them. Like, there's no bad, but that also means there's no good. And she says, and then she pivots to, I don't want anything bad to happen to them, to I don't want to be alone. Which is a very selfish incentive. Completely ruined everything she did up to that point.
Although it is kind of consistent with her character, if you think about how like she's been putting the house in front of her own children, like when it comes to the flipping.
So this is the thing with manipulation. She is being manipulated on the basis that she's protecting her children. As soon as that's been proved wrong, she then goes to herself, and that ruins her character. She would have been fine if she went, oh, you're right, okay, just leave me, I deserve this for trying to kill kids. That doesn't happen. And instead she convinces Hugh to make a trade deal of, okay, I'll kill myself, let the kids go, and they'll return and kill themselves later. And this is the happy ending, that everyone kills themselves in this manner eventually, by the way. And I don't understand why that's a happy ending. Apart from like, everyone. Well, apart from the fact everyone's together again, but the whole point of Hugh's argument is no one can be happy here, though. So what's the point? Which is why episode 10 ruins this whole series, because everyone's character motivation is just pivoted to what Mike Flanagan wants to be a happy ending. I'm afraid
it's a last minute's worth for a happy ending. Completely in contrast to what we've had so far, and you've got a real problem if the mum is actually the mum, because we don't know that. I think we're very used to thinking that the ghosts we see are the house's approximations of people, making use of their likeness, but they aren't really the person. When it's actually the mum, suddenly she's awful, she's evil, she's now a full-on villain. This is a horrible ending.
Yeah, so it's the time with the last episode. Why I reject that, it's the mum being puppeted by the house, is that when the dad dies and he's showing Steve everything, he walks into the Red Room and hugs Nell and Olivia.
Yeah, he totally does. He totally does.
This the house trying to say, this is actually a happy ending. That completely conflicts with everything that happened in the last 9 episodes. They're trying to avoid death here. And now it's like Force Ghosts in the sequel trilogy. Like, what's the point in being alive in this house? What's the point? Why be alive in this house? Everything's better when you're dead.
Yeah, I mean that's one. I can't even say it's a central flaw, but it's a pretty massive one. You spend 9 episodes showing us consistently the house is evil, the house eats you up and twists you, and is sort of inherently evil. Kind of like you said, Amy. It's that's closer to the idea of we all are inherently flawed and broken. And then you get a last-minute pivot in the last 20 minutes of the series to be like, but there's good ghosts, actually, my dude. Do you know there are good ghosts? Just come and be Team Good Ghost.
I didn't get the impression that it was like good ghost and bad ghost. I got the impression that at the end, when the Dudleys realize their daughter's dead and Hugh wants to burn that
oh my god,
burn the house down, and they and the Dudleys point out that this house isn't just about you. Like this house has been around for Americans, I guess, a very long time. In the TV show, it's like 100 years. Yeah, and there's people.
Pathetic America, get on our level. Oh, it's been there 80 years. I've got spices in my cupboard that are 80 years out of date. Get wrecked, Americans.
Can I just say, can you ever imagine your daughter being killed by a man's wife and saying, "Yeah, let's make a deal. We're going to kill ourselves in here"?
Because they're good people. Because they're good, wholesome Christian people, and they are the ones.
Ghosts.
Look,
Amy, I was on your.
Listen, this isn't all about you.
Amy, I was on your side when it came to Hugh, but I'm sorry, but Haryan's right on this one.
I'm back to the suicide with regards to
I don't care how good of a person you are. If someone murders your child, you know the reaction you have is kill them, or you do something.
Don't burn it down. Our daughter's alive.
This is a shame. This is a shame. I tell you what, keep the house, and we'll pop in every so often.
But I think
this is unfortunate.
It was consistent with the sort of better aspects of the plot and the themes. And then I think when it comes to Hugh's suicide, I think that I can't remember who brought this up. I think it might have been at the event. Panama Hat at some point has brought up dealing the what's his name? The Japanese guy. Mishima's suicide, and how he has criticized Christianity because in Christianity there's no method of suicide that is noble in the way that other cultures have. And I think that what Hugh Crane did in a way was that sort of sacrificial suicide in which, yes, he has done bad things and he tried to do the best thing and he did what he could, but it was still, like Haryan pointed out, it was still flawed. And in a way he's removed himself from that situation to go back, be with his family, his wife and his children, and allow the children that are remaining to go on out into the world and without this burden and live their own lives. In a way, it was a cleansing.
Yeah, I do agree. He was put in a hostage negotiation. Yes. It wasn't. It made the wife seem freaking awful. It's either right. You either kill yourself or I kill the kids. Yeah, man. That's a really good thing to show the wife.
No.
The thing with the last episode is it's completely conflicting with the rest of the themes of the rest of the show.
I don't think it is, and that's why I think it. I don't think they realized that they were doing this, but I think that those themes about the that conflict between the sort of original sin and then the sort of therapeutic version of humanity. I think that kind of they didn't mean to necessarily do that, but it is in a way a sincere attempt to reconcile those two conflicting views in Hugh Crane's final act.
Yeah, you're never going to get out of my head. There was a hostage situation, though. That's going to be in the back of my mind all the time. It's like the kids are in that room. They're being digested. They're dying, by the way.
They've gone beyond good or bad. Like sometimes things just go beyond. Some people are good and some people are bad.
Oh my God! I'd love to see you in a hostage negotiation.
Well, hold on. I think I don't mind Hugh making a sacrifice in an impossible situation. I just don't see that there's any the family being together in the house. I just don't see as being a good outcome. Sorry, Nell and the mum, Olivia, and Hugh being together. I can't see that as a happy outcome.
I'm not seeing it as I'm not arguing that it's a good outcome, but I'm arguing that it makes sense and it's interesting. And even though the people writing and acting in the show may not have realized that this is what they were doing, it still hit on some pretty interesting questions that we don't really have an answer for anymore. And if we ever did, they're still. And I think that what they stumbled upon was something that yes was bad and yes. On some level made no sense, but it still asked and dealt with some really difficult questions, and I think that's quite admirable.
Specifically, what questions then?
What I've like I said, that the conflict between the two, the sort of older view, the original sin view of humans versus the more modern one, where everyone's just basically just like good and doing their best. And then also this idea of the mum, she is incredibly flawed throughout this whole thing. I'd say she's a lot worse than the dad.
Yeah, I'd say she's just pure evil. Yeah. She kills a kid, man.
This idea of her not having a framework to pass on to her own children, and that puts her, through her own vanity, puts them in danger, and she never really is able to escape that is just who she is. And then the dad, in a way, trying to deal with that, I think that's interesting.
So to put your point in a different perspective, the mother is trying to protect her kids, and she's manipulated into saying, right, you kill these kids are actually asleep, they're slaves to nature, basically. Well, you kill them in this house, they're free to do whatever they want, they'll only be happy as far as you're concerned. And then she ends up believing that, and then the problem is that then that holds them hostage. And then when the dad's there, he's like, well, I've lived in the outside world, being stuck here actually sucks. I know, because what are the ghosts doing? The ghosts don't seem that happy and just seem to spook people for no reason, which is why I prefer Blind Manor, by the way. Reason ghosts are there are excellently displayed and excellently explained. In this, like proper horror show, everyone, apart from Poppy, the ginger-haired 20s girl, what were the ghosts doing?
Well, one was repairing a clock.
One floating around. That was a bit odd. Like floating, but with a walking stick, like a skier.
They ripped that one straight out of Buffy, didn't they? Horrorshow.
Oh, completely. It's straight out of Killed by Death from season 2.
And then you've got William in the basement who crawls out, and it's just this is clearly a horror film, and it
Haryan,
screams
if I can, the purpose of the ghost, what they're doing, they have some kind of. We're told explicitly they're reenacting some residual memories.
Mm-hmm.
So your bowler hat guy, who's William Hill, he was called William Hill. Why, you sneaky buggers! I'd missed that. Oh my god!
I really want to bet on horse races.
How could they do that to us? Anyway, sorry, non-Brits. That's probably a bit confusing. They're reenacting. So the patriarch, Mr. Hill, he comes back when his hat is taken, and we're told that the boy in the wheelchair knows to knock on the walls, as that's all he remembered. It's kind of, it is a little bit like the Bly Manor thing, but then we have Poppy, who completely wrecks that.
Yeah, Poppy. It's a thing
Is
with
she the ginger one?
Yeah, she's a ginger flapper who was brought in.
Yeah,
basically.
She literally came in episode like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's this? Oh, she could do all this the whole time.
Towards women.
I was what's wrong with Flapper? She's dressed like one.
No, I mean it's so unflattering towards women in general, like the portrayal of the mum, the portrayal of that flapper woman, the portrayal of Theo.
Yeah.
And
Trish, who is just like taking all the abuse and then turning out for more. Shocking. And there's a joke about a bowling ball that comes to mind, but this is a family-friendly stream. So it's sorry, where was I? Poppy, I think, is introduced out of a kind of sense of desperation to sate an audience desire to have an easy villain, whereas the Shirley Jackson book does not give you an easy, obvious villain, and she places villainy, she situates villainy in a place you aren't expecting. You find yourself realizing, actually, we've been in the point of view of basically the worst person in this house for most of the time, and we were writing it off because she's our protagonist. And that's a difficult thing, whereas this adaptation has effectively rode the difficult line for the longest time, and then at the last minute says, oh, I know you actually want someone who can be the face of evil in the house. And so we get Poppy, and I was very unhappy.
I honestly, it's a massive, because the only Mike Flanagan things I've seen are Bly Manor and Oculus. I was very surprised at how no other word for it, basic he went with the horror here. Because Bly Manor blew me away, and Oculus as well. The mirror was the antagonist in that, and it never said a word.
Did you notice the mirror was in this?
Oh, where was it the same mirror? I take it.
Yeah, it's the same mirror, the Lhasa glass. It is in the room with the statues. You can see it multiple times. It's a sneaky little thing. It'll make its debut in a lot of Mike Flanagan things.
No, I'm sure but as I say, it's what I expected from Mike Flanagan was a lot more than episode 10, which I'm quite sad about. But at the same time, like this is better than a lot of horror stuff these days, and even in the past. I mean, I'd watch this again over any Scream film.
Ooh. You're on thin ice, mister, honestly. But yeah, I mean, we're raging. I think we're raging. Okay, look, we are raging on episode 10 because we feel let down, right?
Oh,
because
it
was
definitely.
so gosh darn good
sure.
up until this. There was a point I honed in on, and I don't want to forget it. I have a big problem with the structure of this episode. We have basically 4 in a row of the Crane siblings being in a hallucination, realizing it's a hallucination, and ending on a grotesque visual. And I've got to be honest, it's so repetitive. I could have the exact same content, but I would much rather that they did the thing of interweaving them, maybe make us think that actually after a series which has filled itself with flashbacks, the final episode gives us a flash forward. I'd be like, oh, that's brilliant. Okay, cool. That's so clever. I was prepped for that. Yeah, exactly. They do it with Stevens. I wish they'd done it for every one of them, and then have them all build towards basically a near simultaneous domino effect of horrific revelation that they're all in the Red Room one by one. just going off like a series of short bombs. I would have loved that. But seeing the scenes play out one at a time, with Poppy coming and knocking them all out, which, by the way, didn't know that was a power she had.
Hey, that's my fault.
Yeah.
That drove me a bit mad. Now, having said that, the thing I really wanted to highlight is each of them is rescued by Nell. And Nell then gives a big speech in the Red Room where she basically does what was done to her. She tells them all, you guys were actually really perfect and so nice to me. Don't worry about it, bro.
Despite the fact you couldn't see me.
Yeah, and that drove me absolutely mad because it was like a lot of stuff in episode 10. It was basically, yeah, I know what we've shown you for the rest of the season, but screw it. Someone is going to have a speech and tell you the exact opposite. She came in and a whole load of ghosts told her that she was perfect and it was all good and gave her exactly what she wanted to hear. And then she tells the people who basically ignored her and didn't help her that actually it's all cool, bro. Don't worry about it. Like, am I crazy? Or were you seeing that too?
No.
I did it. So I'm with you. I thought that it was. I was like, I'm not watching this. This ends here.
You're not like me for the first 4 episodes. No, it wasn't. It like a lot. Let me restart. I feel like for a lot of this series, it could have been cut down to 8 episodes, and I don't think I would have been missing much. However, the stuff we did get was pure class, as I say, up until episode 10. And as you say, each one of their kind of finales was excellent. And I think it would have been more satisfying if they all had that finale and died, rather than had that finale and survived, which I think is what the original intent was. But Mike Flanagan said, "Oh, this is really depressing. Right, make it happy."
I can tell you what the original one was.
They all die at the end. I know that.
The version I read was that actually they got out, but Luke didn't. And so it was meant his version of him at his 2-year thing was meant to have someone, the people were meant to be behind him as they are in the final shot. But then one of them moves out the way and you see the central window of the Red Room, letting you know that he's still in there. And I was like, oh, that would have been so good. Yeah. He should have died. He injected rat poison into himself. Gosh darn it.
Quick chest compressions.
I know. Oh, drove me so mad.
I did Google, can rat poison kill people? It turns out it can if you put enough in. So there you go. Just a thing with the series as well.
No one around you dies mysteriously in the immediate future, and they look through your records.
I didn't Google it. I DuckDuckGo'd it.
But that'll have them stumped.
Yeah, I do. Well, we'll probably go on to 11. Let's be honest. But I did want to say, with all the characters, I thought the young to the old versions were really good. Apart from Hugh, it took me ages to realize old Hugh was like young Hugh. I think the reason was because of young Hugh's piercing blue eyes, and old Hugh clearly doesn't have blue eyes.
He does in some shots, but it's inconsistent and very distracting. Yeah.
And the hair's just... Why would a man with such good hair move to such terrible hair? If you know, in a non-gay way.
Oh, of course, Haryan, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was just a small thing. I do notice now they're actually wearing the same suit. The only difference is the buttons. Quite funny. Because you always get like... I've said a lot about episode 10 because I think it ruins the rest of the show. But, with Steve, you can tell quite easily from the young to the old versions of each character who they each are. And with Steve, even even the way the characters conduct themselves in the past and the present, it's still obvious who each person is. Like Steve still controls the room, like even in the Two Storms scene in the funeral home. He's still trying to have a go at his dad. He's the main one having a go at his dad and things like that. And it's things like that I appreciate. And Luke's, Luke's ideal place is the treehouse because it's away from everyone, and he's away from everyone injecting himself with drugs and going to the recovery clinics and things like that. There's a lot of good writing in this show, and I just don't feel like I've spread that out enough because.
I know
this episode 10 really turned it. It really turned it. This episode 10. It's like I wanted to compare it to Game of Thrones, but I think that's way too harsh on this show. This show still keeps a lot of its good stuff despite the final episode.
I was wrangling with it because I think the central conflict isn't actually bad in the scenario. So the idea that the whole season they've been trying to get into the Red Room, and
Hi, Gatsby.
All right, Gatsby, all right, mate. Yes. Also, yes. Sorry. I've got the Red Room here. So this is one of the best reveals. I absolutely love this for the treat. I was looking out for this constantly now. How much did you guys love this? The revelation of the Red Room.
I noticed pretty early on that they look similar, but I assume it was just a house quirk till the final episode. I was like, oh, that's actually really cool.
What's the treehouse one look like?
Oh, do I have the treehouse in this? I do. The treehouse even has the trapdoor as red.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. So the idea that after spending the whole season, we need to get into the Red Room. The episode 10 opens with by showing you actually Theo's already got into the Red Room. That is such a good reveal. And so this conflict of finally they've actually all got in, and now it's a question of how they get out. I'm actually cool with that. They went in, they thought they could solve everything, they thought they could beat the house, and then they're trapped in the Red Room. That is fine. I just think everything went to pieces over how they get out. And we ended up with some really last minute invented rules so that people could do it.
Possibly, yeah.
I'll throw something out that might be unpopular because it was one of my big notes. As you go further into the season, there is something that I started to notice that I'd probably call making a speech check or rolling a speech check. And it's sort of giving someone a really, really long monologue to try and accomplish something that hasn't been built up for. And it's very much a latter day Doctor Who thing as well. Just have someone talk their way out of the thing. And It really annoyed me because it was a way of just trying to convince you something made sense, even though it hadn't been set up.
What's this? Sorry, I've just come back.
Oh, sorry, man. I was talking about something that annoyed me increasingly in the season, but especially in episode 10, was what I call sort of characters try and roll a speech check. They just make a really long speech to try and convince you of something that hasn't actually been established.
Oh, what, like Theo with the whole I'm sorry.
Theo's massive monologue. I watched the EFAP coverage. They loved that monologue. I felt it was a bit too much. I wasn't a fan of it. I thought it was well delivered, but it was a bit.
It did drag for a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't invested in that
but that's
at all.
not necessary. I remember it dragging, but I don't remember that being necessarily bad. Because I watched a bit of the EFAT coverage as well, and I mean, naturally, I found myself agreeing with a lot of it, but I think it's a massive criticism of the lot of this show that some things do go on too long, and yes, some. I mean, maybe that one. I mean, obviously, I keep going on about Theo and her just not needing to be a character in it, and she didn't take much out of it. You know, like I remember in the last episode as well, the big conversation with the coaster, the mum and Olivia and the dad Hugh. I think they could have got that point across in about 2 minutes. That scene went on for about 10.
And as you said, the mum's motivation is very inconsistent. There's almost a thing of
first.
Yeah. If you drag the dialogue on long enough and you make it poetic enough, I mean, call me a pleb, but I just get lost. And it makes it easy for them to sort of make you think they have made the point coherently and convinced you and justified it. And really, you just kind of lose focus and say, oh, is that what's going on? Like Nell's speech in the Red Room is the best example, I think. It's not been set up. It's not been established well. But Nell just talks for about 8 minutes and then you go, oh, fair play.
Yeah, and that's a really memorable scene as well. Because it's really well written. You can have really good, long moments of dialogue that are really memorable without any setup.
I'm just saying it's about it's using the speech to get you somewhere that wasn't actually achieved by setup and payoff. Like I say, it's very much a latter day Doctor Who thing, you know, especially Matt Smith's Doctor would just sort of talk his way out of stuff.
Yeah, he'd keep talking. He'd be like, "Oh, this whole time I was making a bomb."
Yes,
it's like,
classic,
cool.
Absolutely classic.
It's not like Jodie Whittaker's. It's like, oh no, that's what I call an inner conflict. Like telling us what the theme is. Like, thanks, Jodie.
Oh,
I wish
bless
I was
you, Jay, for making that gif.
Yeah, and that's a thing I can really. I don't feel like I've praised this show enough. Like, I think if people were trying to guess what my score is at the moment, they guess like a mid-6 or something. No, this show's better than that. This show's really, really good. The last episode just undermines a lot of it and is bad by itself, but you can't ignore 9 episodes of basically a masterpiece.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I spent a long time with Waifu basically rewriting the final episode so it was consistent with what we had seen.
Well, I couldn't believe the last episode was written by Mike Flanagan. I was stunned to find that out. I like honestly, if it was said like, "Oh, last episode written by Laurie Penny," I would have been like, "Ah, that makes sense." But that was Mike Flanagan. Maybe he's spent too much time with Laurie Penny. Who knows? But
I think possibly he got some directions to rewrite. I honestly do think that he got pressure to change it and make it not so brutally depressing. To be fair to Mike Flanagan, if you're going to make a happy ending to this show, he probably did the best he could do. Because it didn't do a season 8 of Game of Thrones where it tried to make a happy ending for everyone and ruined it. It made a happy ending for everyone and made it a bit niggly. Go on.
This is the uber meta narrative. So Mike Flanagan treats this show like his child. He tried to do the best he could, but by the end, he screwed it up.
Oh my god!
Just like
it's
you.
like poetry. It rhymes.
Right.
All of a sudden, the 10th
so many
episode is
layers.
critically acclaimed. How's that for a hot take?
It's not as hot as why weren't they in a gay bar? But I'll take it.
That's the least worst flaw, I think.
We are ragging on it, but it's taken away from the fact that episode 6
you're ragging on it.
We're all pointing out problems with episode 10. I'm like, episode 4, episode 4, 5, 6. This is some of the best TV I've seen.
Yeah,
like
5
Luke's
to
episode
9
is
were incredible. Yeah.
Well, I would add 4 in there. I mean, Luke there was a bit of build up to Luke, and like his episode absolutely broke my heart. Like, he's a total scumbag in that. But he's heartbreaking. He's so compelling. And that really is just amazing TV. But we're just like naturally focusing because we're not doing an 8-hour EFAP stream. So we've ended up just kind of focusing on Theo sucks and well, actually, even that, I think I'm okay with Theo. I like her. I think she does some really good stuff. I don't like how Trish is used as a character. And the Theo in this is kind of close to Theo in the original, but kind of like a modernized, more extreme version. So, you know, like she's openly gay, and her extrasensory powers are, you know, like much more pronounced and more obvious. You know, so she's in there for some continuity.
I remember a lot of people saying like Bly Manor had forced diversity. Now this felt more like it had forced diversity than Bly. I have to say.
I think Bly had a lot more forced diversity, but I mean, I'm afraid to say Mike Flanagan has been getting worked on. He has been getting the treatment. I saw people haranguing him on his Twitter about, you know, Mike, you've been really good about having gay characters in all your shows, but why are they all cis lesbians? It's like, oh. And he said, don't you worry, you're going to love my next series. It's like, Mike, no, they won't. It's never enough, Mike. Please, Mike, please. Yeah, so there's a bit of Netflixing in like basically who everyone gets as partners, but it's not really a. I noticed it a lot more in Bly Manor.
I disagree. Well, I can't disagree if you notice it more elsewhere, but I've watched this in a weird order. To be fair, I've seen Bly Manor before this, and I'd say, for example, with the lesbian relationship, I felt in this it was totally needless. In Bly Manor, it's kind of the core of the story. Okay, also in Bly, you've got Owen, the Asian chef, with the black, what's she called, housekeeper,
Hannah. Yeah,
Hannah. And in this, you only have like the guy Stevens talked to in the first episode about stop signs. That's like the only black character in this. It's like, okay, but
what about Arthur? You're forgetting about Arthur?
I'm forgetting about Arthur.
Who's Nell's husband?
Oh, sorry, yeah, the Oriental.
No.
No.
So
black.
Shirley.
Yeah, the dude who died of the aneurysm.
Shirley has a Latino husband.
It was 10 episodes.
I completely
Nell
forgot
has
about Eleanor
a black
having
husband.
a black husband.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God, I'm not the only one.
Theo has a Asian American booty call, Trish, and there's Meth Zendaya. I don't like breaking.
So super diverse.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you can't go through.
Oh man, I'm sorry,
like
you can't go this way, but you
can't go through all that and say Bly had forced diversity compared to this. No, this had more forced diversity.
Bly had an English manor house in the 1980s with a black female head of house, I suppose you'd say.
West African, yes.
Fine, West African. An Indian chef.
Where we also had
a gay gardener.
Oh, that were gay Brits. Come on.
We didn't colonize Gayland. Come on.
I
wish I'd done better than Gayland. Florida? What should I have gone? Florida? France? France would have been better.
You can't say the name I'm thinking of.
Oh, no.
I know.
To be fair, I know what you mean, but when when it comes to forced diversity, it's, do you need these characters? No. Oh, they also happen to be, gay or non-white or whatever.
What?
With Bly Manor, absolutely every character in that was needed to make the story as fulfilling as it was. With this, it's just, who's the fifth child husband? I don't know, make him black. You know what I mean? It's,
I mean, the thing I pointed out in my Bly Manor reviews was like literally every bad character was a white male out of everyone in the cast. I don't even agree. I don't agree with Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, you're allowed to be wrong, but it's fine.
Oh my god, I'll fight you.
Wait till you watch Midnight Mass. That's one of those ones where it's not a big presence, but where it is, it's crowbarred in ultra hard. It's just like steamrolled through the window. It's very.
I've heard that's very Midnight Mass in that it's very good up until the last episode.
Yeah, I'd probably say Midnight Mass has the best ending.
Even with Bly Manor.
Yeah, I mean, I had big problems with the Bly Manor ending.
I mean, we've already covered it, but
not as bad as this, but you know. Anyway,
well, I need to see Midnight Mass. Like when we get to Midnight Mass, I will tell you why you're wrong.
All right, cool.
Assuming you are wrong,
we'll have you back on for Midnight Mass. All right, I feel we are probably having passed 2.5 hours. We probably should round up now.
So next week, are we going to review the Liam Neeson one?
Never. Oh no, I can't. I mean, I don't know. Actually, you know, it's I don't have fond memories of it, but I saw it in cinemas because I'm old. So,
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, good. No, we've got a special one next week. We got a member request, which I'm delighted about. I'm really interested in that one. But we should, before I go announcing the horror homework, we should probably move on to our. You know, actually, there's one thing we haven't talked about that we really have to. It's such a cool thing, and people will wonder why I didn't mention it. We should talk about the hidden ghosts.
Yes.
I saw the neck woman and I saw the clock man. Where's
Amy?
There's quite a few of them.
Had you picked up on the hidden ghosts?
Did you just mean where there were shots and there was a ghost in the background?
Yes.
Or do you mean where it wasn't clear where there were ghosts, like the clock man, where it's like, oh, that wasn't he didn't look like a ghost?
I'm meaning the one. There were quite a lot of scenes in actually every episode. There are ghosts hidden in the background. So in this image I've got up, if you look under the piano, there are ghostly hands.
I've just realised that, and I think that's so corny.
Oh no!
That's so corny,
Amy. No.
What about
corny?
What about in episode?
Because
what about episode 6?
Is that when they were all in the funeral home and there was like and there was a.
But specifically now,
so I don't get why it was. It didn't add any. I don't think it added anything. No.
You don't think Nell in the funeral home added anything?
No.
Really? The whole point of that episode is that she's there and no one notices.
Yeah, but I didn't think that was particularly. I don't know. Like I said, that didn't tickle me.
It doesn't need to tickle.
It just didn't interest me.
It's not trying to get a laugh out of you.
In the show. No, I mean, out of all of the things in the show that interested me, that wasn't one of them.
Fair enough.
With Nell's case, I'd say it's very thematic. With the others, I will absolutely grant you it's a gimmick. But it supports a theme that a lot of them are just sort of ignoring it. But I love it as a bonus. Although the curse is especially when you rewatch it and you know about the hidden ghosts, I was completely distracted and I was looking in the background of every shot in the in Hill House, just trying to find them. I got a bit too obsessed with them. It's very creepy noticing them.
I preferred it in Bly Manor because in Bly Manor the idea is that they're trying. Well, they're not even necessarily trying to hide, but say with the child, the faceless child, who moves the dolls around the house. He is trying to hide, and it's great. And the rest of the time, it's just a guy dressed in black as a plague doctor. He's there, but no one notices him, and he's happy. And then at the end, in episode 8 even, you understand why. It's because, well, these people they are literally just mindless people wandering about the premises because they don't know what else they're doing. In this, you're wondering, well, why are there ghostly hands on the piano? Are they trying to catch her? Well, I don't know. They could literally just knock her out and put her in the red room, though. That's what I do know. It kind of undermines. Which
I feel like the ghosts are all in this show. I thought they all looked like zombies, and they were it was too much makeup, and it made it had a lot of even their introduction and the house made it feel more like a fantasy than horror.
It felt kind of the hidden ghosts like we see under the piano here. It feels more cheap than Bly Manor, where in Bly Manor you've got what I love about Bly Manor is that there's a random World War I officer just in the gardens. Most of the time you have a shot in the gardens. No one notices them. It's not even referred to, but your headcanon can go, right, she was caught by the main ghost, which if you've seen Bly Manor, you know where he was caught. And he's just there acting as a World War I officer because that's all he knows what to do. And that's incredible. That's like 12 out of 12 stuff. In this, you're like, Mike Flanagan's trying to make a cheap thrill if you notice it. I think. I'm not sure.
I wouldn't call it a cheap thrill. It is a bonus. It's a bonus for you, but we could probably say it's quite indicative of he's tried stuff out here that he refines in Bly Manor and beyond. I think it's probably fair to say.
I think he watched this again and said to himself, wow, I can do this so much better.
Well,
maybe.
I'd like to think so. I would like to think so. Good.
I hope he did, because that shows a true artist. I mean, look, even with Oculus, because Oculus was what, 2009?
13.
Well, still, it was before all this. And I think he makes mistakes. There's mistakes he makes in this that he didn't make in Oculus, which is why I was quite surprised. But I think he was experimenting with this, and he's experimenting with Bly Manor, but he does so well. If I ever see anything come out by Mike Flanagan, I will watch it at this point. I can guarantee I'll enjoy it, and it will be at least the 9 out of 12.
I think that is very positive, and be fair to him in this. Oculus and Hush and Before I Wake and Ouija, Birth of Evil, that whatever the name of the prequel was, those are all movies. Those are 90-minute things. And Hill House is like a massive series with moving parts. So you can forgive him his first TV series as well. You can forgive him sort of dropping a few balls over the course of it. I think he's obviously had quite a learning experience with it.
Yeah,
and you notice that he's only done shorter series ever since. It's like he's tightening them up. You can tell they said, "Do you want 10 episodes for Bly Manor?" He's like, "Nope, no, 9."
How many did you do with that one? That was 8, wasn't it? Oh, is it 9?
It was 9, and Midnight Mass. I think he did 7. 8. Oh, it might be 8. Yeah, he's reducing it each time. He's tightening it up.
I'll say next one.
I can't wait until he ends up with a Netflix movie in 12 years.
Oh gosh. Okay, folks, we addressed the thing. We should do our closing thoughts because I do believe we do still have Super Nanny to be aware of, folks, and consider. Don't forget, she is ruthless if she is displeased. So, sorry.
Is this Super Nanny?
Yes, Super Nanny's on the right there. Technically it's not. I just needed. I couldn't get a photo of her from behind, so Anyway, let's not break into the Photoshop talk.
Those who want to know, I am torturing David Lynch behind that door.
No. Okay, folks. let's go for closing thoughts and scores. Out of 12 burgers as ever, and chat, drop those scores if you've seen it. TCG, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll keep this short and sweet. I like the series. The last episode, unfortunately, did sort of knock it down a couple of pegs for me because I just don't think it was as strong as some of the earlier episodes. My favourite ones were definitely episodes 5 and 6. They were like easily like 10, 11 out of 12 burgers if they were just standalone episodes. But overall, I actually preferred Bly Manor to this. Yeah, but not by. But I'd say that, but not by too much. It was very familiar for me in terms of Bly Manor. Some of the shots were really nice. I quite like the child actors in this, although like the child Theo was a bit pointless. I will agree. I didn't understand the whole touchy hand, like magic empathy power that she had. I was interested in the storyline. I was interested to see how the characters would develop, like how the children would develop. Favorite characters were people like Luke. I felt like Luke's story arc was, for me, one of the strongest. Yeah, I mean, it was fun in parts. I would give it. Okay, let's say if I gave Bly Manor a 10, I can't remember exactly what I gave it, but if I gave it a 10, for example, then this would have to be 9 out of 12 burgers. Lack of ketchup. Wasn't a lot of it.
Very low ketchup.
But there are some gherkins hidden in the corners of the burgers if you look hard enough.
Very sneaky pickles.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I don't really know how to sort of say. I don't really know how to sort of explain it, but I mean, if you liked Bly Manor, then you would like this. But I definitely can see what you're saying in that this seems to almost seems like to be a bit of a test run for Bly Manor, if that makes sense. You know.
I can go with that. Amy, how about yourself?
Is it out of 12?
Out of 12, yes.
I'm gonna give it a 5 then.
A big drop from the film. The film got an 8, I believe.
No, I think I gave the film a 7.
Oh, a 7. Okay.
I think.
Oof. Haryan, we just found your replacement, mate.
I don't normally watch things like this or anything at all. Basically, it was very American, and it was I think it's very of its time, and it does have that sort of ridiculous dramariness that American dramas seem to have at the moment, where there's 37 main characters and they're all consistently arguing with each other about in an overly dramatized way that just turns me off. I don't like that, and I didn't think the horror elements were done well, and I didn't think that it had internal coherence. I think the most interesting things about it were things that maybe occurred by accident or without quite realizing what was happening on the part of the people producing it. I don't know. Yeah.
That's okay. It did not work for you. and you have explained why. And you have, I just think possibly you also came in expecting an adaptation of The Haunting of Hill House, which is...
No, I knew it wasn't from the beginning, because I have tried to watch it in the past, but it's just not like, I don't tend to watch series. I don't watch series. It's not my kind of thing to watch.
That's okay. All right.
So that's a big part of it.
Oh. Okay. All right. Anything else is going to sound generous in comparison, but no worries. All right. Haryan, take it away with your score. We have a 9 and a 5.
So for the past month, I've been trying to track down and murder David Lynch, and now for Amy's terrible take, she's next on the list.
Do you not like David Lynch?
No, the man is the most overrated filmmaker I've seen in my life. It's incredible. Compared to this,
take so much of this, Haryan.
I'm that way inclined too.
Oh, thank God. Okay, in that case, you're put down 10 places then.
My boyfriend is a really big fan of David Lynch, so I might have to watch some with him and
I will
reassess
fight
that.
him.
But I'm
yeah, but I mean, the David Lynch thing's a bit of a meme. But with this, no, this is some of the best TV I've seen in my life on a genuine level. This was incredible. Everything from the setup from the first 4 episodes, which they were a bit dragged, but they were setting up great things, and they still had great character drama in it. And yes, if the most I'm saying about most scenes in this, I think they dragged on a bit long, but everything they were saying was absolutely keeping me in it, absolutely kept me involved, absolutely were not dragging the story on, keeping the story going, the plot going, the character motivations going. I could understand what was going on. It's just so unfortunate. Then you get to episode 10, and then retroactively it makes like episode 5 where the what's it called, bent neck lady. Oh, that turned out to be me. It's like, oh, that's cool. And then they try and explain it as like, oh, time's just confetti and doesn't make sense in this universe. It's like, oh, don't do that. Don't explain it. That would have been so much better. And you're trying to get, as far as I was concerned, this house was trying to get bodies in to keep itself surviving. You don't need to tell me where that comes from. You don't need to explain all that. But you're telling me that this house would rather have it so that it makes people fall in love with it in really, really unbelievable ways than just try and keep them in and kill them in the Red Room and lock them in there. Because it locked 4 people in the room and then let them all out to then feed in like 50 years. I don't believe that. I don't believe a house would be like that. I don't believe that Hugh's wife, Olivia, was Olivia as a ghost. I think this was just the house trying to manipulate people, but it was so all over the place. It ruined the whole thing, unfortunately. But you could probably watch this up to episode 9 and then fill episode 10 with headcanon, and this will be an 11 out of 12 TV series. Unfortunately, episode 10 ruins it all. This is 9 out of 12, but it's got every sort of season you could want on it. It is, the rest of it's perfect, but there are only 9 of them instead of 12. That's kind of my take on all this. That makes sense, or did I just ramble?
No, I can go with that because it is a challenge. It is a massive challenge it's like, how do you rate Game of Thrones? It's like, well, if we cut off at this point, it's amazing.
If you cut off at season 1, it's 12. If you cut off at season 4, it's 11. If you cut off anywhere beyond there, it's 2.
With the Little Shop of Horrors, the initial ending in the cinema was just like a 5-minute long montage of loads of Audrey 2s demolishing Manhattan. And then they had to get rid of that. The audience apparently didn't like it. It was too depressing. So they had to recreate the ending where Seymour and Audrey live happily ever after, but then it zooms out and there's that little Audrey 2 growing in their cute little garden. And maybe they should do that more often where there's two different endings. You can pick the ending you want.
I support this, and Mark Kermode has a very good chapter in his book, The Good, the Bad, and the Multiplex, about why audiences ruin films, and it's very good.
I mean, I'm just going to take the peep show stance of people voted for Hitler and like Coldplay. You can't trust people.
All right. I'm very sympathetic to your score, Haryan.
Having said, sorry,
go ahead.
Just to finish off, everyone watch this. Watch this, then Blind Manor. Midnight Mass I've not seen, but if this is what Mike Flanagan's putting out, you're not going to be disappointed. It's all I want to say. You can go on. You have my permission to host your own show now.
All right, cool. I'm very sympathetic to your issue. Because for me, all the flaws are so concentrated. I have my big quibbles about episode 8. Amy kind of persuaded me actually 7 and 8 are doing different things in terms of tone. So I was a bit won over by that. Although I did still hate the stupid cat fight bit. That it was just tonally jarring. So not a fan of that. And I have my problems with Trish and Theo. So it would have otherwise be sat on like a strong 11.
How have I, with the worst score, who didn't like it, convinced you to like it more?
I thought you had a really good take on episode 7 and 8, which I was just going to smush together for speed. But it's that 10th episode which wrecks it. Well, it comes down to a 10 out of 12 for me. A whole burger goes off for the last episode, and it's so bad, but it is so concentrated. And it still delivered emotional moments that got me crying. I was very emotionally manipulated successfully, so they were doing something right. I can't take it below a 10 because of how good everything else is, and I'm very inclined to, as I did immediately after finishing rewatching, we spent about 40 minutes after, and then more time this morning, working out a headcanon ending that wasn't terrible. And that's probably what you have to do with this. So for me, it's 10 out of 12. Lack of ketchup, not much cheese on there, and onions a whole lot less toasted than I expected. But there we go. Conversations also added a bit of spicy sauce on there, which was unexpected, but not entirely unwelcome. And that is how we end our discussion of The Haunting of Hill House. And our schedule's been slightly hiding the fact that, it's also sort of effectively the last time with Haryan as a regular co-host, hopefully returning many a time as a beloved guest.
I've not been on for a month and a half.
Well, I know it wasn't meant to be like this, but we didn't actually get to do the proper send-off.
It's a miscommunication from me saying when I really couldn't do this anymore. But as you say, I'm happy to be, if you come to me and be like, oh, or if I see a film and I'm like, oh, I really want to see that, I'll be on for that. I'll be back on. It's not like I'm gone forever, but, David Lynch needs to fucking die. So
you're more in regular guest rotation, to be honest.
Yes,
there are
exactly.
A few ones I specifically want to ask you from back for because I've been working up to them. One of those is Cabin in the Woods, so we'll have to sort that out.
Yes. That and if we ever do Midnight Mass as well, get me on for that. Those are
absolutely.
two that I definitely want to be on for. So.
Absolutely. But yeah, you've been amazing. You've been turning up for so many streams, contributing, pointing out where I'm wrong, focusing on the story and not the gay reading, playing your part.
At least you admitted the gay reading in this was totally unnecessary, so I'll take that.
It was. I was harsher on it than anyone else in this episode,
That's true.
But yeah, it's been amazing. We are going to work out what to do going forward, but I had to say a proper heartfelt thanks.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I've loved being on this. I mean, as we say in the chat in the background, I probably have a better knowledge of horror films than anyone ought to have, especially more than the average normie, which I'll take. And like I said to my brother the other day, this is about films in general, but films and TV shows in general these days, they're not great. And my brother took issue with saying these days, and I can say thanks to this, well, I actually have probably better education on you than films in general, even if it's just specifically with horror. Because he probably doesn't know what Freaks is. He won't have watched House of a Thousand Corpses, even though it's terrible, and we lost a subscriber thanks to that. But yeah, I've been keeping up on that. I've seen Alien and all that. But I've appreciated it. I know it was a kind of COVID, not everyone doesn't have things to do. I want to talk about horror films. Hey, I'll be happy with that. But, these things happen. I have other projects to do. I will always show this show though. It's a very fun way to keep up on horror films, get takes from very very different points of view. Like especially Amy's with this. Like she hated it. I don't know how you can hate this show, but well done. You must.
It was great.
I didn't hate it. I just didn't like it, and I wouldn't have watched it. Well, I did actually previously try to watch it when it first came out and fell asleep. Woke up at episode 5 and turned it off.
I have
extremely
no
unsophisticated taste in viewing material. Like it's not for me.
Well, I'll be honest. The way I watched this show, because I was at my sister's, I only had one screen with me, so I watched this. I put it on my phone as I was doing what I usually do on my PC, but I found myself looking at my phone more than my PC. That's how good this was. But yeah, I can't imagine you would ever do that, Amy, with this show.
Thing I've heard.
So yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but and I still saw the hands on the piano.
Nice.
But I do just want to shill this channel, obviously shill everyone else, and it's the typical English thing of I'm trying to be very very modest about how things with our channel and your channel have been, but it's been fun. What else is there to say? I've loved the show. I hate the fact that I can't do it every week as I used to, but things change, and I will be back as much as I can. What can I say? Also, I really want to murder David Lynch. I want to make that clear.
In my
I was going to sign off.
No, in real life.
Nailed it. Okay. Well, you will be back and you will be welcome. But we are going to close off tonight. So we have thoroughly disappointed Super Nanny. Gosh darn it. Never mind. She will get over it. And I'm sure next week will be super short. I'm sure. Next week's horror homework is going to be Life Force. This is a member request from Yiz. She was really keen on this. She's tried to persuade me to cover it a while ago, and something I like to do for people who sign up as members to the channel is I will cover a film of their choice, and there was absolutely no question. It's going to be Life Force. So that is what I'm going to watch, and I hope you'll watch it and enjoy it. It's a 80s sci-fi vampire Lovecraft thing. I mean, how can you resist it? So I will leave it off there. That is your horror homework, Life Force. I gather it is free on Amazon Prime and even freer elsewhere on the internet. Not that I know anything about that. But with that said, I will give very grateful thanks to Amy for bringing her great knowledge of Shirley Jackson and unexpected takes, but not unwelcome.
Oh, I hope I haven't disappointed too much.
No, you're an absolute star. I was mentally thinking, I really want to get Amy back for Dead of Night from 1945. So when I'm scheduling that, I'll have to be in contact. Mr. GB, I think I've got yours at the end of the month. I've got to confirm. I'm chatting with a person we've got on for that tomorrow. But you'll bring us, I think, our first Giallo, although I'll have to check that. Yeah, and Haryan, thank you for coming back. Getting all emotional. Emotional at the start of the stream, emotional at the end. What are we doing, eh?
Why are you being a massive F slur? Like, come on, grow up, man. Jeez. I'll be back.
I should have got my gloves on.
I'll be back.
All right. And TCG as well. Thank you so much.
Speaking of I'll be back.
Oh.
Segue.
Terminator was great.
It's busy times. Yet on Tuesday, TCG and I are going to do the Long Promise Running Man stream. That is our current plan. Yes. So I've got to rewatch over the weekend. Running Man on Tuesday. Mima, I'm doing yours in. I should be filming the conversation about it tomorrow. No, wait, Mima. No, I'm confused. You're the wrong person. Don't confuse me. I'm doing someone else's request tomorrow. Gosh darn it. Oh, it's too late.
Is it mad about doing the Thomas the Tank Engine horror?
Oh, no. I'm getting confused.
Honestly, if we can do that for April Fools, I'll be very happy.
Oh, no. Okay. It's getting messy. I'm going to sign off. Massive thanks to my guests again. Massive thanks to you in chat. I really hope you watched and enjoyed Haunting of Hill House. And with that, I will say thanks, y'all. Cheers. Get your rock gang in, Haryan.
Lynch is an...
Oh!
It's still live.